man's gunning for me tonight. I spent the last week running from the heat, but the beat's coming alive. Let's get lost tonight. Lord, who's on my right?
Hello, wackos. Welcome to it. Oh, that happens 2 weeks in a row, and I don't know what it is. But hello, wackos. Welcome to Without a Country. I am Corinne Fisher. I am in Studio B again, so if the framing looks a little bit different, that is what's up. The schedule is a little wackadoo over here, but we want to get the show to you. I am wearing old merch. Well, merch actually that I never released. I designed all this merch with the wonderful graphic designer Jackie, who has done so much work for me on different podcasts. And this is a picture of Alfred with a little witch hat on, and it says, "I joined a cult and all I got was this lousy T-shirt." And so I have all this merch that I designed and then never sold, and I like to occasionally wear it just so at least you guys can see it. I think it was like half designed during COVID, and then my dad got really sick, and then no one had money and I had no energy or interest in selling merch and at that time, and now it's 4 years later, so that's what life is. Hello, welcome to the show. If you are just joining us, this is Without a Country. We look at the news from the perspective of the right and the left and everywhere in between. We say from Fox to Vox. We read over here and we find some truth in the middle, because remember, the truth is in there. Media is held to certain journalistic standards, but you have to do some digging and use some critical thinking and piece some things together. It's not just handed to you anymore, and I think that's a good thing, but you need to make sure your brain is sharp. All hail to our dictator, Christopher Fan Guy. If you missed last week, we do officially have a new dictator, Christopher Fan Guy. Hello. It's so good to have you here. And we have a new capitalist pig joining us on our Patreon this week. Kyoto, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here and helping to support the show. If you're interested in supporting the show financially and helping to produce an independent news show such as this, head over to patreon.com/withoutacountry and you can subscribe for as little as $6 a month. Every week you do get an exclusive video news story that is just for Patreon subscribers, and you help pay Mike, and I have a new person coming on to lift the show to the next level that I just met with earlier today, and pay for all the subscriptions to all these wonderful news sources, because I think that is actually important to pay for news so these places can keep in business and they don't have to be owned by billionaires, even though they probably will still be owned by billionaires. So that's a little bit of an issue. Anyway, I also want to give a big happy birthday to Courtney Love. It's Courtney Love's birthday today, and I think that is appropriate for this show because this show is about finding the truth, seeking the truth, being loud about what we know to be the truth when others are trying to hide it. And, for all her problems or internal struggles or problems in her relationship with Kurt Cobain, that's her business. I do think that we, as a society, have not given Courtney Love the proper amount of adulation for her constant telling of the truth in Hollywood, whether it be about Harvey Weinstein or the fact that gay people are in fact people and should be treated as such. She has been talking about that for a long time. And I think, I was looking right before we went on air because she seems like the perfect candidate for an episode of The C Word with Alina Dunham and Alyssa Bennett. I don't think they're doing new episodes anymore. I was listening to the Amy Winehouse episode from a while back while I was getting ready for my 4th of July party. And I just love that show. And I don't see a Courtney Love episode, although she seems like the perfect person to have an episode of The C Word on, because I do think she's someone who gets a really bad rap in society. Many people blame her for the death of Kurt Cobain. And I think that, again, she has, certainly she's a complex individual and obviously has had, issues with substance abuse and stuff, but that's her own journey. And I think that she is really forthcoming with so much stuff. And that's why ultimately I think she gets called crazy a lot, because she was exposing truths that we as a society were not ready to hear yet. So just wanted to take a moment and shout out Courtney Love for that. As usual, I have some kind of ailment. I know it probably seems like I'm like sick every week, and I kind of am. It's a little bit autoimmune disease. And then I think a little bit is, quite honestly, I do feel like I inherited many good qualities from both my mom and my dad, which is, you don't get to choose the stuff that you inherit. So you just hope that it's the good stuff. But unfortunately, it does seem like as I age that I have just a lot of, internal issues. And I feel like I did, unfortunately, inherit that from my dad. So I just have to, I don't know. I just have been throwing up for the past 24 hours. But I made it to the studio. I'm just a little weak and it's super hot here, which is certainly not good for that. But I've been sicker than I have been in quite some time. And I really haven't been able to hold down food. So hopefully I won't faint during the show, but the show must go on. But if I look weird, that's why. I'm also very, very pale because of my vampire hair, though. So that is that. And then also, this is where you guys come in. I do need some assistance, and I feel like the people who watch this show are smart and thoughtful. And so there's two things. One is a little bit sillier. So I am the proud owner now of 2 Labubus. I usually don't get into hype like this, but there's something about Labubus that really taps into like nostalgia for me and childhood, and I love blind boxes and blind bags. Like, again, I think I talked about this before, but like millennials, we used to have a lot of like blind box and bag toys in the toy aisle at Toys R Us, and it just brings me back to childhood in the best way. And I love like little dangling things, and I love the concept of making adulthood more fun. And I love that adult women are hanging Labubus from their like $20,000 Birkins, because I just don't think that we as a society embrace frivolity in that way. We certainly embrace frivolity, but like in that way where we make things whimsical and fun, and like everything doesn't have to be so adult and unenjoyable, even if you are a serious person with a lot of kids and a mortgage. And I have a mortgage too, and you can still be silly and have a mortgage. That being said, I'm the only person on the planet who bought the Labubus first and then decided I needed a designer bag afterwards. Yeah, I spent like $80 on Labubus, and now I'm going to spend several hundred on a designer bag. But I'm asking you, I've never bought a designer bag before. I'm not buying a new one. The thought of spending that much money, it just like does not interest me. I like vintage better. Also, half this shit is leather, and I have a rule that I don't buy new leather. So I wanted to buy either a Christian Dior or a Prada bag. I like this. I think it's called, I have no idea what I'm talking about, just, the shape is called like the Boston Tote. Both designers make them. Again, used only. I was looking on Etsy and eBay. eBay seems to have better prices, but I'm just confused. I know it is illegal to sell fake bags on eBay, but that doesn't mean people aren't doing it. So, and I read all this WikiHow about how to figure out if it's fake or not. But is there anyone who's like good at this, who I can send you links and you can tell me if it's real or not? Because it seems, I found this cool Prada bag for like $500, and I really don't want to spend more than $500, and that is already like taking me out. But it said on WikiHow that if it's under like 800, it's probably a fake bag, and I wasn't able to find it anywhere else but eBay, so that makes me think also that it's fake. But there's a couple other ones, and anyway, like it's just very hard to tell on eBay. And again, I'm really experienced with selling on eBay from having a baseball card store, and I know some of them have authenticity guarantees, but this particular like blue style bag that I want doesn't. I feel so ridiculous, but I just truly don't know how to do this, and I spent enough time making sure that I was buying real Labubus. So I thought you guys, this is something that someone who listens to this podcast might know. I am turning 40 later this year, and I thought, you know what? When you're a 40-year-old can have a designer bag used for $500 or less, and there's good ones. It doesn't need to be like perfect. It's just, I don't want anything too nice that gives me anxiety. And then the second thing is. I'm also going to Tokyo in October, so keep that in mind. I know someone said, hike Mount Fuji. Mount Fuji is closed for hiking after mid-September, so I won't be doing that. Also, I looked at it, and it's my brother could do that. It's a little too advanced for me. I don't want to fear dying at 40. But if anyone has any recommendations for things I absolutely must do in Tokyo, I have a pretty extensive itinerary already that me and ChatGPT talked out. So I kind of know exactly what I want to do and where I want to stay. But I'm super interested in like things that I must not miss. Like I'm doing a lot of animal stuff, doing a lot of nature stuff. I'm going to go to play pachinko. I actually own a pachinko machine. It was my dad's. So I'm really excited to do that. And then specifically like day trips that I should take from Tokyo, or if there's like another city that maybe I should spend 2 days in. I'll be there like with travel, or without travel, I'll probably be there like a full week, and then I'll add on, 2 days for travel. So I'll be out of town for like 8, 9-10 days, but I'll actually like be there, let's say 7 full days to experience it. So just keep that timeline in mind. And again, early October, because before that I was warned that it's absolutely too hot. My friend lives there, which is so it's 40th birthday trip. And then also my friend lives there. My American friend lives there. Her husband is in the military, and he was stationed there year or two ago, and so I had this only a 4-year window that I needed to get there to have my American friend show me around and stuff, and just visit her. And there's an English speaking comedy club there now, which I was hoping would happen, and it just opened like pretty recently. So if you're in Tokyo, I will be performing there as well. But I'm going to get all that stuff done. So if you have any recommendations, you can DM me, or if you want to send a lot and make sure that I definitely see it, withoutacountrypodcast@gmail.com. Thank you very much. That is all for me. I'm not trying to this was an American. I'm not trying to like kowtow to you. We don't want any problems here. This was Corinne Fisher's American version of just thanking you for that. Because, I talked about ChatGPT. I did my Googling, but I also feel like with travel, it really is good to ask people who kind of know a little bit about what you like. All right. Now that that's out of the way for me, thank you. I also want to just give a shout out to 39. I feel like when you are approaching one of these milestone birthdays, it makes me sad for 39. It makes me feel like I'm not giving 39 justice. I have enjoyed being 39 and will continue to enjoy being 39 through September 28th. And so I hate to like rush it or anything. 39 is a fun, wonderful, and good age for anyone approaching 39. So let's also talk things I learned this week. I feel like I learned so much, and there are learning opportunities on the internet, even though it seems like it's just doom and gloom. And something that I do is I definitely learn a lot of stuff from memes, but I learn I learn the tip of the information from the meme, and then I research it further. Number one, to make sure that it's an accurate fact and it's not something that was just made up and sent around, because that certainly happens a lot. But also so that I have more than a meme's worth of knowledge about it. And something that I learned this week, or like not always meme, like infograph, whatever, little, 1-by-1 Instagram size shareable information. And so something interesting and also right up my alley that was brought to my attention this week was that the game Monopoly was originally invented by a woman who never got credit for her idea, ended up with like $500, even though she owned the patent for the game. And the game was originally an educational game about capitalism. And obviously a lot of stuff about capitalism versus socialism is coming up on my algorithm now because of the mayor's race in New York City, because the winner of the Democratic primary Monopoly. Zoran Mamdani is a socialist. I was in the race, obviously. So that's just been a really big talking point in New York City right now. And, also with all the stuff that's happening in the Trump administration, and all the changes that are being made and all the fiscal problems and the big, beautiful bill, I think there is a larger just discussion about capitalism in general. Jeff Bezos's wedding, so many people so few people having everything and so many of us not having a lot. And so that just, I thought this was interesting. I did some research on it and I'll just share with you what I learned. So the origins of monopoly in 1903, Elizabeth Lizzie Maggie, or McGee, it's Magie, an American feminist writer and game designer, invented the landlord's game, which she then patented in 1904. Her purpose was explicitly educational and political, which is so interesting, to show how land speculation and unchecked capitalism enriched a few while impoverishing many. She created two sets of rules: an anti-monopolist version where wealth was shared and everyone won together, so socialism, a monopolist version where one player would crush the others. The idea was to teach players that monopolies were unjust and harmful. The landlord's game circulated informally for decades. People hand-copied boards and rules and played in homes, schools, and socialist clubs. In the 1920s and 30s, homemade versions evolved and changed. People dropped the educational component, so American, and mostly played the monopolist version because, ironically, it was more fun. And that right there, I really think, in a nutshell, speaks to American values, right? Why do we like the things we like? Why do we like mafia movies? Why do we like people or are interested in people like Andrew Cuomo? Why do we like shows like Love Island where people are exhibiting bad behavior that we would hate if it happened to us, but it's somehow fun and entertaining to watch it happen to others? Why do we like that? It is because, in a nutshell, the villain is always the more interesting character. When we watch Disney movies, I don't know about you, but I certainly... Basically, in every Disney movie, the villain is the more interesting character. There are so few movies, and this goes for live action as well, where the perfect or minimally flawed hero or heroine of the film is the most interesting character. Partly because I think we like to watch people do bad things that maybe we've always thought of doing in our devil mind, but would never actually dare to do in real life. And then also because we are flawed. And so while we are most times not as evil as the villain, we are very few times in our life as heroic as the hero or the heroine. And I think it is human nature to push away or certainly not gravitate towards someone like a hero who really just holds up a mirror to our own flaws or our own lack of, want to engage in superior, perhaps, behavior, or to be a hero, or to be noble, or to help the poor, or whatever it is that we're doing. So this makes perfect sense to me. Yeah.
Did you see the new Hugh Grant movie, Heretic?
No, I didn't. Is it good?
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's all right. But they did like a full 3-minute monologue on the landlord's game getting co-opted by the Parker brothers.
Oh, that's interesting. So maybe that's why this is circulating. That makes sense then.
That does make sense.
Yeah, because I was like, I know, I understand how it found its way into my algorithm, but I was like, I always wonder what prompts people to kind of find these stories. But it was very interesting. One such player was Charles Darrow, who encountered a homemade version, likely already heavily modified during the Great Depression. Darrow refined it, gave it a more polished board and theme, and there is a picture of the original board. And I find the Monopoly board that we have now confusing. So think of that about 5 times more confusing, and that was the original Landlord's Game board. It's very advanced.
Yeah, it's on the screen now.
Yeah, it's a very advanced and crowded board for sure. And that was the original feedback she got on it was this is too complicated. But again,
this is kind of cool.
What?
So like instead of free parking, instead of the go directly to jail, it's Lord Blueblood's estate, no trespassing, go to jail, owned by Lord Blueblood.
Blue blood, yeah.
The poorhouse / Central Park is the free parking.
Yeah.
And then collect your wages, Mother Earth, labor upon produces wages. That seems like some kind of communist, take back the means of production type of slogan instead of the go.
Right. Yeah. No, it's very interesting. I do love an educational game. And
There's also no free parking in jail. If you go to visit your friend in jail, you got to pay $10.
You got to pay. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Yeah. And I mean, it reminds me of, what's that? What's the really complicated game that was popular?
Life?
No. It was
Mousetrap.
Oh God,
That's a complicated game.
I begged my parents to get me Mousetrap, and they were like, no. And then Santa brought it, and man, did I rub it in their faces. I was like, well, I guess Santa trusts me, and it was very complicated to put together. But that was just like the game that you had to have that year. No, oh God, I want to say Caravan, but that's not like.
Settlers of Catan?
Yes. So Settlers of Catan, I feel like that's an example of a game that seems really complicated. And like my friends a couple years ago, we all got together in like a house in Pennsylvania, and they like really wanted to play it. And I just looked at it and I'm like, if I feel like I have to learn a new job to play a game, I'm already out. Like this is not relaxing to me. But then I was like, I caught on actually pretty quickly. I was like, can someone just explain the rules to me instead of having me read them, that we can get into it much quicker. And then I ended up winning the game. So I was like, all right, I like this game now. Anyway, back to the Landlord's game. So Charles Darrow refined it, gave it a more polished board and theme, and sold it to Parker Brothers in 1935 as his own invention. Darrow and Parker Brothers became very wealthy. He was widely celebrated as the inventor of Monopoly. And then what about Maggie? Did they say how to say her last name? Is it Maggie or McGee? Or Maggie or... I'll say McGee. I don't know. When Parker Brothers learned about Lizzie McGee's earlier patents, they quietly bought them out for about $500 without giving her significant credit. They stopped producing her version of the game and focused entirely on Darrow's version, rewriting the history to erase her contributions. McGee spoke to the press at the time, saying she was shocked and dismayed that her message, meant to critique monopolies, had been turned into a game celebrating monopolies, and also had been monopolized by somebody else. She died in 1948, little known and uncredited. In the 1970s, Ralph Anspach, the creator of Anti-Monopoly, researched the origins of Monopoly while fighting Parker Brothers in court and uncovered McGee's role. Today, historians and game scholars acknowledged her as the true creator of the game's concept and mechanics. And I don't know, I just thought that whole kind of story was really interesting. And of course, anytime a woman invents something, I would like to give her credit on at least my show. So thank you, Lizzie. McGee for creating Monopoly, and I love that you created it for educational purposes. That brings so much more depth to the game, and makes me more interested in playing it.
This is I'm just reading on the Wikipedia, like the philosophy of the game. It was based off of Georgism, which is like the teachings, an economic system. By a gentleman, I believe his name is Henry George. But the concept was to have one single tax. So instead of having your income or like sales tax or anything like that, the government should create a universal land tax based on the usefulness, size, and location of the land. Make it that one single tax. Then that alone would fund the government, and any leftover money would be distributed among the people.
Interesting. It says Georgism is also in modern times called Geoism, or historically known as the single tax movement. It's an economic ideology holding that people should own the value that they produce themselves, while the economic rent derived from land, including from all natural resources, the commons, and urban locations, should belong equally to all members of society. I don't hate that. I mean, I got to see it in practice, but in theory, I love that people should own the value that they produce themselves, and then like natural resources belong to us all. Very into that. Like that a lot. All right. Well, we can look into it further. Again, I learned about it, 5 seconds ago, so I can't I don't want to be like, I love geoism. Cut to geoism ripping a community apart. All right, let's get into the enemy of the state this week. The enemy of the state this week is none other than our boy, Ted Cruz. When natural disaster strikes, Ted Cruz says, "Bon voyage, I'm going on vacation." What a putz. So this week, listen, the news is upsetting all the time. There is something about the flooding in Texas and, specifically the Camp Mystic flooding that, I just love girls. And this has just ripped my soul apart, this story. And there was something about natural disasters like floods or quicksands, that kind of sometimes, or something where you're getting wiped away in just literally a moment by nature that is, God, just so anguish filled. I don't know. It is torturous, violent. But it is, I guess we expect humans to be violent towards each other or to us. And so there's something about that I feel like as a people we have almost become immune to. But when it is the earth kind of fighting us and destroying us, there is something that adds an extra level of complexity and sadness for me about that. And that's how I just feel about this flooding. This is from the New York Post. Senator Ted Cruz pictured at Parthenon on Greek vacay after devastating Texas floods killed at least 105 people. U.S. Senator Ted Cruz, who, again, Republican from Texas, was pictured at the Parthenon in Greece reportedly 24 hours after devastating floods hit the hill country of his home state, killing at least 105 people. The photo came as Cruz said he flew back to Texas as fast as humanly possible. It was 2 days after, leaving Sunday and returning to the Lone Star State that night. However, flight data show multiple earlier flights that could have gotten him home sooner. Cruz's office told the Post on Tuesday that he was on a pre-planned vacation with his family when the floods struck early July 4th. And that's fine. And just because you're a public servant doesn't mean that you can absolutely never go on vacation. Completely understandable. July 4th is the most common time in American culture, in my estimation, besides Christmas time and Thanksgiving time, to go on vacation. Almost everyone I know is away this week. I get it, but what is different about going on vacation as a regular person and a public servant is that sometimes when as a public servant you got to go back, and take care of business. And that doesn't mean your family has to leave. Your family can fucking stay. Your family, your wife, your kids, they can stay on vacation. But you're on call. You're a public servant. You're like a doctor, but you're a doctor for the community that you govern, and you got to go back. And it's not no one that then you shouldn't have signed up for that job if you didn't want that. Within hours, he spoke by phone with Governor Greg Abbott. Woo! Shout out to Wheels. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, Texas Emergency Management Director Nim Kidd, and President Nim Kidd. That just sounds like a weird nickname for Nicole Kidman, but okay. And President Trump working to ensure that the maximum federal assets were available for search and rescue, a spokesperson said. Yeah, I mean, there's a picture that it says Texas Senator Ted Cruz sightseeing at the Parthenon in Greece on July 5th while his state was flooded. Just this guy needs someone in his life in control of optics, because he's certainly not in control of optics. He and his team worked closely with local officials and with families of missing girls throughout that time. He promptly booked a flight back home. Given the time difference, he left Athens on Sunday morning and was back in Texas that night. And he was in Caryville on the ground early Monday morning. The statement continued, adding that he had returned home as fast as humanly possible. There were multiple flights on Saturday from Athens to major U.S. hubs that would have connected to San Antonio near the floods, including planes to JFK, Newark, Chicago, and Washington, Dulles, according to flight data. It isn't known how many seats would have been available on those flights. Again, I'm not saying it has to be the actual, we don't know what the hell, but it's also just get him back. And also well, I guess private jet from a different country is like not really on the table, but like he's not like that money, but I don't know. On Saturday around 6 p.m. local time, 11 a.m. Eastern, he was spotted with his wife lining up outside the Parthenon more than 24 hours after the Guadalupe River burst its banks, according to the Daily Beast. The floods struck the Texas Hill Country between 4 and 6:30 a.m. July 4th. At least one witness recognized Cruz and confronted him, the site reported. He was with his family and a lone security guard. As he walked past us, I simply said, 20 kids dead in Texas and you take a vacation, the witness told the site. Cruz grunted in response while his wife, Heidi, shot them a dirty look, the witness added. A dirty look and not actually saying anything is when you know that you're in the wrong. On Monday, the senator told reporters at a press conference in Caryville that he had been in contact with Trump and local authorities within hours of the floods, seeking support and resources from the community. And again, like, whether or not that's true, I don't really know what he was doing from his cell phone. Certainly technology allows us to do work from, other places. The point here, though, is, again, when you are an elected official, and I truly believe this now more than ever, part of your job is to be the face of the place that you represent, the mascot. You are the head cheerleader, the captain of morale. Like that really is, like people make fun of AOC or whatever, but that truly is a big and important part of the job in my assessment. Because the people really do have, a lot of power when we work together. And there are many things that, an individual elected official cannot get done on their own. But if they are a person who has a lot of star power and charisma and is constantly in communication with the people, he or she can be the leader that rallies the community together and actually gets stuff done. So, I'm not saying he completely wasn't doing his job, but part of his job is to be on site when it matters, to represent, say, hey, the people that you elected to help this state, this city, this country, whatever it is, I'm here, I'm on site. And I'm not saying that Ted Cruz is going to be individually out there, a search and rescue doing any of those stuff, but you have to make the people who elected you feel like you give a shit about them. Like that truly is part of the job, even though it feels like on paper, perhaps you could argue he could do just as much from the Parthenon as he could do in Texas. Like I could hear that argument. And while logistically you perhaps might be right, because I don't expect him to be swimming through floodwaters, even though I think a good leader might. He needs to be at the place where the tragedy has occurred. That is part of his job. There aren't words to describe the grief that Texans are feeling, he wrote on X. Pray for Texas and Kerr County. It isn't the first time Cruz has been accused of going AWOL when his state had an emergency. In 2021, the former Republican, and we covered this on this show, presidential hopeful, was given a shellacking after he flew to Cancun, Mexico, while a record winter storm left millions in Texas without power or water. He defended the vacation at first, saying he was trying to be a good dad and that his daughters had asked to take the trip. However, Cruz later admitted the trip was obviously a mistake and that hindsight, I wouldn't have done it, speaking to reporters after returning to his Houston home, where protesters and reporters had gathered. And also, if it's for your kids, I think showing up for your job and, for the other people who need you is an actually really good lesson to teach your kids. And also, your kids don't need to go on every vacation that they ask for. I certainly did not get every vacation I asked for. It took me 4 years as an adult to get to Romania. 4 years of asking. It was my college graduation trip. Was it worth it? Yes. But also, the fact that my parents made me ask for it for 4 years straight, I'm sure there was a lesson in there somewhere. He also faced claims that he had left his dog alone in his freezing home while he and his family fled the statewide emergency. Although the family pet was left behind, it was not left alone and was never in peril, his then press secretary, Jessica Skaggs, said at the time. It's so funny. They always throw in something about a dog. I've noticed in half of these stories because if like all the other information didn't make you hate the guy, the thing about the dog would. And that reminded me of the Andrew Cuomo story where he left his dog in the governor's mansion in New York. And he was like, I can't control this dog anymore. Also, I love that this guy wants to control New York City. He can't even control his own dog. That's hilarious. LOL. All right, moving on to the wacko mailbag. I have a bunch of emails, but I've selected one email for this week because we have so much to get through. This is from Wacko Mackenzie, and this is about municipal politics going on in her state of Utah. Hey, Corinne, here is some local municipal drama from my home county of Box Elder in northern Utah. There's a city called Corinne here. I actually do know that last time I was in Utah, I saw signs for Corinne, and I couldn't believe that no one had told me about it. But I was very excited, and it's spelled the way I spell it. In January, the fire chief, Ned Hansen of Tremonton, was arrested after his own family members accused him of sexually abusing two family members. Through investigation, they found he was sending CSAM on Kik. Mike, can you interpret that for me? What does CSAM on Kik mean? A Kik is like...
Kik is a messaging app that creeps use.
I know it.
And CSAM, I'm assuming, is child sexual assault material.
Oh, okay. I was like, I know. Kik is kind of like WhatsApp, but like for weirdos. Kind of.
The only people I've ever seen with Kik in bio are on like fetish dating sites.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So I've heard of it before, but I've never downloaded it. His case was assigned to District Judge Kevin Christensen. Despite law enforcement and prosecutors requesting he be held without bail, Judge Christensen decided the fire chief should be released from custody. After more investigation, Judge Christensen was also arrested because he had been messaging the fire chief, CSAM, and they had been discussing acts they had done with minors with each other. And so, again, a really disheartening lesson I learned this year. And I guess I didn't, I already knew it from TV and articles and just life, is that, we often seek the court system to help us be vindicated. And so often the court system is just as corrupt and the judges are just as corrupt as the people who we had the initial problem with. And that is certainly what I learned this year with my fight with the Board of Elections. Really disheartening. And this is just another reflection of fuckery in the court system and in municipal politics. They are both currently going through the court system. Naturally, my small hometown community has been blowing up with gossip, and Mackenzie included a link to a KUTV.com. It's like a CBS affiliate news site. Fire chief, judge who released him on bail had sexual relationship, shared child porn. Two Box Elder County officials accused of multiple child sex crimes reportedly had a relationship with each other. Ned Brady Hansen, 54, was Tremonton's fire chief. He was accused of child sexual exploitation and was subsequently let go. Court documents state he communicated with Kevin Christensen, 64, a First District Justice Court judge who is also facing charges for multiple child sex crimes. Christensen was immediately placed on administrative leave pending an investigation. The men were allegedly using the internet-based chatting app Kik to communicate about sexually abusing, sexually exploiting, and enticing children, including children related to them. According to charging documents, Hansen and Christensen discussed having met in real life to engage in sexual acts with each other. It was also noted that law enforcement requested Hansen to be held without bail due to the risk he posed on children, but Christensen, his judge, released him from custody on bail. God. And that makes sense that the judge would get a little bit more leeway in the court system. Christensen did not disclose that he had engaged in sexually charged chats regarding children with Hansen. Charging documents state law enforcement believes this fact materially affected the decision making of Christensen at the time he released Hansen. Yeah, or the fact that he was also a fucking judge. Holy shit. Now, that is crazy. Thank you so much for sending that in. If you are at home, I want to send me anything, but specifically we're just having like a moment right now on the show where we're talking a lot about municipal drama. I have been loving it. I hope you guys have been loving it. Loving it in quotes. Like I love it for entertainment purposes, but I hate it for our country. You can send that over to me at withoutacountrypodcast@gmail.com. Thank you so much.
They're corrupt.
Yeah. Oh, I am loving it. Oh, thank you. That reminds me of two things. Number one, snack wraps to return tomorrow. And number two, they have these tiny toys in the Happy Meals that I have to go get. I'm very into mini stuff.
No.
What?
I'll tell you after.
Oh, no. What? Oh, God. Don't forget to tell me. This is going to haunt me for the rest of the show. Mike, give the call-in number. We haven't promoted the call-in number in a while, and I just want to remind everyone this is still a call-in show. I know the news has been chock full of shit lately with Donald Trump at the helm, so we haven't really had time for chatting, but I'm always interested to hear commentary and certainly the scoop, what's happening where you are. If you have had any encounters with ICE, like anything like that, call in. Tell me. What's the number, Mike? He forgets.
No, I'm posting it in the chat right now. The live call-in number is 201-308-3510. Please only call in with topics we've discussed on the show and be prepared to answer my call screening text messages. It seems like a lot of people call into the show, just not live, because I get calls like all the time on like Friday afternoons from people.
Oh, right. Yeah. And I mean, as a reminder, we're recording this now, Wednesday. We started the show like 7:30 Eastern. So unless it says live on your YouTube right now, you can't call us because we're not together. We're not in the show. It's not like a leave a voicemail thing. This is C-SPAN style. So we're only looking to call in if you're at the show, watching the show right now. I want to move on to Cuties Corner. I actually have two Cuties Corners this week, one international, one domestic. This first one is good news. This is from the New York Times, and I don't think we covered it, even though this is from like a couple months ago, I believe. But someone DM'd this to me, and I absolutely love to hear it. This is from the New York Times. Mexico City bans traditional bullfights for violence-free option. Showdowns between people and bulls can still go on, but the animals can no longer be hurt or killed. Some bullfighting proponents say the law imperils an ancient tradition. Well, I think when something has, it was also like an ancient tradition to like beat your wife, like, wasn't it? I mean, sometimes when something has ancient in it, just realize like maybe that's why the progressives behave the way that we do. In the biggest bullfighting city in the largest bullfighting country in the world, Mexico City lawmakers overwhelmingly voted on Tuesday, and this was back in March of this year, to ban traditional bullfighting, a move that was supported by Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum. Of course, the gal who DM'd this to me, and sorry I forgot your name, but she was like, this is what happens when you have a female president, and I love that, but was fiercely opposed by backers of the centuries-old custom. The legislation, approved by a 61-1 vote, prohibits the injuring or killing of bulls for sport in or outside of the arenas. It will allow for what proponents call bullfighting without violence, in which rules determine how long a bull can be in the ring and limit bullfighters to only using capes. My heart always beats for animal welfare, said, how do you say that name? I've looked it up. I feel like Zotil. I forgot how you say the X in Spanish. 1 second. Guys, I got to learn.
Well, I know just from the Jaguar god, Jabalanque is how you say the X there.
I would say Jotil is how I would say it if I was maybe just going off it. Sauchil, it's looking like. Wait, sorry.
Sochil.
Sochil. Okay, so Okay, so that's just not the sound at all. Sorry, I didn't take Spanish. Okay, said Xochitl Bravo Espinosa, a Mexico City legislator who helped spearhead the effort. But Ms. Bravo Espinosa said that legislators tried to find a balance in which the bullfights could go on, albeit modified. And I think this is really what compromise looks like, and maybe we should learn how to do this in this country. So that people who made a living off the industry could continue working. She pointed to people who sell gear and food around La Plaza, Mexico, the largest bullfighting arena in the world, which opened in 1946 in the heart of the city and seats 42,000 people. So they took into account how this affects everyone involved, right? Like they said, like people are bullfighters for a living, and it's not just the bullfighters, because maybe we could, get them new jobs, because that's not that many people, but it's all the people who sell the food and the merchandise and the contribution that these 42,000 seats probably make to our economy, tourism, et cetera, et cetera. And they came up with a plan. Bullfighting proponents denounced the legislation. Protesting outside of Mexico City legislators' building on Tuesday morning. This is just the beginning of a fight for our bullfighting, four bullfighting groups said in a joint statement later in the day. Raul Perez Johnston, a lawyer for Tauromaquia Mexicana, a national bullfighting organization, said in an interview that there were a number of remaining questions about the implementation of the law, which is expected to go into effect in the coming days, and that the group planned to challenge it legally. In a statement leading up to Tuesday's vote, La Plaza, Mexico said that the proposal to alter bullfighting was a clear threat against one of the most deeply rooted cultural traditions in our country. Again, there are a lot of traditions that we can look up that negatively affect many people, usually not guys, but sometimes animals, women, disabled people, et cetera, et cetera. So maybe we can move forward with the times. Again, also when you're looking at the numbers on that vote, like this was overwhelmingly agreed upon. It said the changes completely distort the essence and go against the heart and origins of this tradition. Bullfighting was at the center of a major legal fight over its return to Mexico City just last year. A human rights group successfully convinced a federal judge in 2022 to approve a suspension of bullfights at La Plaza, Mexico. But arena officials appealed the decision, and Mexico's Supreme Court revoked the suspension, paving the way for bullfights to return with much fanfare in January 2024. Bullfighting, spread by Spain throughout its colonies in Latin America in the 1500s, has faced a mounting existential crisis over the years. Despite a steady decline over the decades because of prohibitions and deepening opposition, the practice continues in at least 5 other countries besides Spain and Mexico: France, Venezuela, Peru, Ecuador, and Colombia, where a ban doesn't begin until 2027. Mexico's first recorded bullfight was in 1526, and over 300 bullfighting plazas remain. But since 2013, 1526, to give you perspective, is where many of the torture devices in the Saw movies came from. So that was something, those were other traditions from that time, because I believe, like, if my timing is right, because that was the Spanish Inquisition. I believe I'm right on the timeline there. Let me just make sure, because I know that was like 1500s, I'm pretty sure, right? When was that? Maybe Spanish Inquisition was like a little bit before, in the 1400s, or it went on for quite some time. Okay, well, I mean, that went on for a long time, but it was within that. But since 2013, 5 of Mexico's 31 states have prohibited bullfights. The battle over bullfighting has come to symbolize a larger culture war between tradition and more modern views on animal cruelty. Yeah, like living creatures shouldn't be slain for sport. I mean, that's like, that's like so far behind where we've come. PETA is rolling over in its grave. I mean, I know PETA's alive, but according to Mexico City's legislature, 168 bulls and steers were killed at La Mexico Plaza in 2019. Proponents of the tradition have argued that represents a very small percentage of all bulls born in Mexico, and that the bullfighting industry creates tens of thousands of jobs in the country. Right. I hear what you're saying, but if 168 children children were killed, but it created a lot of jobs in the industry. And, this is again, for sport, for entertainment. We're not talking about, this is not feeding people. This is not, creating life-saving medicine for people. I understand it's tradition, but we're saying the tradition can live on even without all this death. And also,
no, if they were doing that to children in America, I mean, certainly someone would say something.
Oh my God. And especially if like the tradition involves death. Like, what are we like? I just don't even understand how we're still having this conversation.
Yeah, no one could ever harm innocent beings in America for sport.
I understand what you're getting at, Mike, and it's not okay there either. But like, we're also not gathering in an arena. Like, at least they have the decency in America to try and hide it. That's like step one, because they know it's wrong. So at least they're trying to hide it, They're not just doing it out in the open R. Kelly style.
I think I'd prefer gladiator style of misdeeds to be behind closed doors. Who knows what these sickos are up to?
Because at least this gives like the everyday working people. It doesn't make everyday working people complicit. And I think like if you're gonna be bad, at least like let the billionaires be bad on their own and don't fucking involve us.
There's no ethical consumption under capitalism.
Oh, get a bumper sticker.
We're all complicit.
The new legislation decreed that bullfighters will only be allowed to use the traditional large cape and the smaller red one to lure the bulls. It also determined that individual bullfights last only 15 minutes, with only 6 such bullfights per event. Mayor Clara Brugada of Mexico City, another woman who proposed the violence-free option, welcomed Tuesday's vote with great happiness. In recent days, Ms. Scheinbaum said she too was in favor of the violence-free bullfights and called them a very important step. Some animal rights groups also applauded the legislation, but argued it hadn't gone far enough, which is exactly what animal rights groups would do. Bloodless bullfighting is just the beginning, said Animal Heroes, an organization that started a Mexico Without Bullfighting campaign 6 years ago. We will continue fighting until we achieve its total abolition. Ms. Bravo Espinoza, the legislator, said that within 7 months, the city government will issue the new bullfighting regulations with input from all sides on exactly how the new bull events can be held. And hopefully they really are holding people to this and not just like make a bunch of fanfare about this new legislation and then let things go on as they were. Like, that's what you really hope. And we'll keep keep an eye on it. If anyone lives in Mexico City or just goes to visit Mexico City, give me the 411 on what's going down there. I heard Mexico City is like an incredible place to visit and has really good food. Hopefully you're not eating bull. Okay.
You're not welcome there right now.
No, that's like because of the travel advisory.
No, because of the gentrification and tourism protests in Mexico.
Oh, right. Well, I thought that was because people have been living there. Have been relocating there.
Somewhat, but it's also, I mean, there's a large swath of like anti-tourism sentiment bubbling up around the world.
Well, for sure, that's fine.
And it's certainly like that was part of it in Mexico City. Like it was like, yeah, they keep coming here and buying up land, but also like when they interviewed the protesters, it was like people are visiting here, and that's like they're staying in the Airbnbs that people are buying that are pricing us out of our homes. For sure.
Well, I will be visiting Tokyo, when Tokyo starts hating America, especially a culture that, is, kind of very kind of notoriously obsessed with American culture, then we know we really have a problem. So I'll take the temperature of how they feel about Americans in Tokyo, and I will be staying in hotels, not Airbnbs. So yeah, I'm here for you. I don't like staying at Airbnbs really, especially not when I'm unless I'm with like a big group of people where you want to stay together for a cheaper price. Because honestly, like there's always so many rules on the Airbnb thing. That's like take the garbage out, water my plants, read a chapter of a book and summarize it for me. Like there's all this. I'm like, I don't want to do tasks. The fuck. I'm like, I want to do whatever I want. And, I don't leave a hotel room in disarray, but there's not going to be blood on things. But other than that, I'm not taking out garbage. I'm not doing any of that shit. That's not a vacation. The second Cuties Corner is courtesy of my mother. My mother keeping an eye on what's happening in New Jersey so I don't have to. And this, I mean, when my mom sent this to me, I said, this is such a New Jersey story. I can't even contain myself. It's from NewJersey.com. Man accused of beheading Jersey Shore seagull after it stole his daughter's fries indicted. This is the most Jersey headline I've ever read in my entire life. A South Jersey man, I mean, not to cause an internal turmoil, but obviously it was South Jersey. South Jersey behaves in a way that the rest of New Jersey does not. We don't condone the actions of South Jersey. It's really Philly who's in charge of South Jersey, and we don't claim them. A South Jersey man who was accused of tearing the head off a seagull near a boardwalk theme park was indicted last month on animal cruelty charges, state court records show. Grand jurors indicted Franklin Ziegler, 30, of Cape May on June 24th, roughly a year after North Wildwood police, and of course it happened in Wildwood, charged him with third-degree animal cruelty offenses. Ziegler will be arraigned next Wednesday, records show. An email to his attorney for comment by New Jersey Advance Media was not immediately returned. Last Independence Day week, Ziegler allegedly told officers he had beheaded the bird after it tried swiping French fries from his daughter, police wrote in a probable cause statement. Police were called to Surfside Pier, one of the parks of the Maurice Piers and Beachfront Water Parks franchise, on July 6th. Theme park workers told authorities Ziegler approached them for a trash bag while carrying the dead bird, police said. Photos of the dead animal were taken and used as evidence in the case, police said. And honestly, shout out to those workers who reported him, because I can see, like, there are so many people who would have just given the guy the trash bag. And, like, kudos to you guys for, for at least recognizing you had a psychopath among you. Again, I point out that cruelty towards animals is so often, a sign of being a sociopath. And also, a lot of times people, kind of test the waters with hurting animals before they move on to hurting humans. So it should not be taken lightly. It should not be taken lightly when you're hurting anything that's a sentient being. But also, it really can be kind of the training wheels for violence against other things. And like, I'm sorry, this guy's hit a girlfriend. Like, you just know he has. You beheaded a seagull, you know he's hit one of his girlfriends, allegedly. Anyway, the freedom, man, the freedom. I can just say whatever I want again because I'm not running for mayor. All right, moving on to girl. I want to just play this video, Mike, if you think it will be okay for the YouTube. Again, this is something that I came across online. It was, beach. This is an Afghanistan tourism promotional video. And I go, is this for real? And it literally is for real, apparently. I mean, I looked it up. It is for real. And they want us to visit Afghanistan now. And it does include a comedic hostage situation. I don't really know what's going on. But it is real, right? Have you seen this before, Mike?
No, and look, I rarely do this, but I'm going to take this and bring this to another show that I work on, because on Notes Vagoon, we do have a running segment called What's New Taliban? Whoa. So this is what these guys are up to?
Yeah.
Playing pranks for tourism videos?
Yes.
Let's see what they got going on.
Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Salika salam.
We have one message for America.
Welcome to Afghanistan. What's up, Yusuf?
And the American souvenir.
Oh, it's not even on safety right now.
Looks tasty.
10-pound ramen fat.
They got beachfront like that? Whoa.
And so for those of you who are listening, it starts with a comedic reveal of, it looks like they're about to force a guy to make a proof of life video. He has the classic bag over his head, and a bunch of Afghani men behind him in traditional garb. And then they remove the bag and it's a white guy. And they're like, yeah, we love tourism here. There's another scene where they let him play with a gun, and then they go, LOL, it doesn't have the safety on it. So it just seems, it actually looks beautiful. It reminds me kind of how Romania looked, like, kind of unfinished roads, but a lot of beauty. There's ocean, there's mountains, kind of a thing. Like, it looked beautiful. I don't really know who that's for. I mean, obviously stand-up comedians are going to enjoy it, but I don't know who's actually booking a trip to Afghanistan. That being said, I do have a friend who went to Afghanistan, and he had really good things to say about it. And he, did some work and built some school. He built a school there, or funded a school there. But I don't know that that's going to be the experience that everyone is going to have. So yeah, and I'm referencing my friend Giulio Gallerati, who was on Guys We Fucked not too long ago and talked about his school in Afghanistan. So that was a really interesting episode. But I just had to play that for you guys. Let's move on to more sections of Girl. Let's talk about, there's been a lot going on with ICE, a lot of instances. Yeah.
So I'm sorry to derail you before you move on, but did you see Trump is now saying that Syria is all good?
Like, to go to?
No, like he's his quote, I believe, was, he's the leader of Syria now. He's a tough man. He's a hard man. He's done, tough guy, right? And he's gotten some stuff done. And it's like, that dude was literally running ISIS a couple of years ago. And you're
running ISIS.
Running ISIS, yeah. It's Al-Qaeda is in charge of Syria now. Russia also officially recognized Afghanistan as Talibanistan.
Okay. Well, that's good.
Sorry, I'm locked in on everything in the region that I find super interesting. But the idea that, like Afghanistan might be if the leader of Al-Qaeda running a country is now a de facto ally of America, why wouldn't Afghanistan be an acceptable tourism destination?
Well, I mean, I think according to Giulio, it is. But I mean, it's like I actually. As a woman, I certainly wouldn't travel alone there as a woman, but there's many places I wouldn't travel alone to as a woman. But it's just funny to me that, I mean, that approach is interesting. We're not going to take you hostage, or are we? It's like when you joke that openly about something, that makes me more wary of it, I think, is my notes on that.
As a dude, all I heard was it's dude heaven out here.
It is. There was a lot of, there wasn't any women featured
Not
in that,
a single woman
in that
featured.
video.
You can bring your assault weapon to the amusement park. It's dude heaven.
It's a real man cave, and literally might be a cave there. So
come stay cave.
Come stay in a man cave. It's literally a cave, Afghanistan. But again, the actual environment looks gorgeous. I'm sure it's beautiful. So this moving on to ICE.
World powers have been fighting over it for 50 years. I'd hope it's beautiful.
Wow. Moving on to this is ICE, not ISIS. This is from Fox News. So much has been happening this week with ICE. I mean, I shared on my Instagram, there was this horrific scene of a man shopping the aisles of Walmart being tased and just dragged out of the store while personnel, allows it to happen and tries to stop people from filming. And again, if this happens, near you, in front of you, to someone to someone you don't know, this is where you step in. I mean, obviously don't get yourself hurt, but film it, get that information of the people doing it, take the license plate number, take the badge plate number, ask them to identify themselves. We need to step in. And then there was another video from San Francisco, where people actually jumped onto the car that they were trying to take the undocumented individuals away in. And they, one person hung on the car like down the road. I mean, just like people really stepping up and
see the Haitians in Brooklyn.
People fighting back. I did not. What happened to the Haitians in Brooklyn? No,
they came for some Haitians in Brooklyn, and it was like during it was like a hot summer day, and it was like there's a bunch of Haitian dudes who were out there, and ICE came, and ICE left without a person captive, and with a lot more bruises and cuts.
Good. Fuck them. Seriously, fuck them. I am so mad. Like, I don't know what apartment ICE buzzed in my building, but I am so mad, that I wasn't around for that, because I would have been like, who are you here for? What are you doing? And then when they figured out that was no one in my building, and it was like the building next door, I think, I would have followed them, and I'd be like, who the fuck are you taking, and what is your reasoning for taking them? And especially if they're taking individuals who, many of us who are from here don't understand the law of the land. So, if you do know, encourage your neighbors. They don't have to answer the door. They don't have to answer questions without the presence of an attorney. All these things, like, just help people in your community know their rights. I think that's like something that you can do that is quite easy. Again, passing out information, following Attorney Martinez, who puts all her stuff out in Spanish as well. All right. So again, this is from Fox News. And I like that they're still calling this section on FoxNews.com. They're still calling this section of their news site illegal immigrants. Like, it's like they just like. Again, it's one of these instances where it's like you could be making points, but you have to use such tacky language that any point that you might be making is not even gonna sit with anyone who might be willing to hear it. ICE agents targeted in 2 ambush attacks in recent days. Anti-government suspects allegedly shot a police officer in the neck while carrying propaganda materials calling for class war against ICE. And I took this from Fox on purpose because I wanted to hear their perspective. Obviously, I am very anti-ICE, and I'm like, fuck yeah, like honestly. Just I think this is what we're going to see more and more. Like, so you see this happen. This is very much like the Luigi Mangione thing. Regular, civilians are just going to start fighting back against these people who have too much control over our lives, and it is going to become all-out war. Like, that's what's just going to, this is just going to keep happening, I really believe. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE agents, and other federal law enforcement officers conducting immigration enforcement have been targeted in at least 2 ambushes in Texas in recent days. Big week for Texas. The Justice Department on Monday named 10 individuals charged with shooting a police officer in the neck and opening fire on other correctional officers outside the Prairieland Detention Center in Alvarado, Texas on the 4th of July. The group, donning all black, allegedly first began shooting fireworks at the facility, which is being used by the Department of Homeland Security to hold people related to immigration violations or awaiting deportation. The defendants are Cameron Arnold, also known as Autumn Hill, Savannah Batten, Nathan Bauman, Zachary Evans, Joy Gibson, Bradford Morris, also known as Megan Morris, Maricela Rueda, Seth Sykes, so is that Bradford Morris, also known as Megan Morris? Is that a trans person? Like, what, huh? Maricela Rueda, Seth Sykes, Elizabeth Soto, and Inez Soto. The complaint charges each of them with 3 counts of attempted murder of a federal officer and 3 counts of just charging a firearm during, in relation to, and in furtherance of a violent crime. On Independence Day, a group of about 15 rioters violently attacked the ICE Prairieland Detention Center in Alvarado, Texas, and shot at a local police officer. DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin said in a statement to Fox News Digital. The officer sustained an injury to his neck and was transported to a nearby hospital. Thankfully, he has since been discharged and is expected to make a full recovery. Approximately 10 minutes after convening at the ICE facility, 1 or 2 individuals broke off from the main group, excuse me, and began to spray graffiti on vehicles and a guard structure. This is actually, so I read about what they did and I watched a video on what they did, and it was actually the most concerning part is how easily their simple plan was able to how easily the ICE agents were able to fall for their simple plan. One or two individuals broke off from the main group and began to spray graffiti on vehicles and a guard structure in the parking lot. Photos included the criminal complaint filed in the Northern District of Texas that show the vehicles tagged with "ICE pig" and "fuck you pigs." Immediately after the officer got out of his vehicle, one defendant positioned in nearby woods allegedly shot the officer in the neck, according to the complaint. So basically they used like the graffitiing on the cars to distract them to do the damage they really wanted to do, which was very smart. Another assailant wearing a green mask and standing across the street then allegedly fired 20 to 30 rounds at unarmed correctional officers who had stepped outside the facility. And it's kind of like, well, what's going to happen is I think like, the left, who is, anti-gun and who for so long has been trying to, make guns less legal in America, perhaps is finally realizing that guns aren't going to go away. And so now what's going to start happening is they're going to start using guns against the people who wanted them here in the first place. And I think we're going to see more and more of that. The shooting was captured by both CCTV and the APD officer's body-worn camera, the complaint says. Especially when so many people on the right argue that the reason they want guns is, for their constitutional rights to defend themselves from the government, and it's like, well, the left can apply those rules as well. So when the government is overreaching, like they're doing with ICE, or, when the capitalism is overreaching, i.e. Luigi Mangione in the healthcare industry, well, then the left is going to learn how to use guns too. And again, I think we're just going to see that more and more. The FBI recovered AR-style rifles from the scene. The group fled from the detention center separately, some on foot, some in vehicles, and were later stopped by other law enforcement officers. The complaint notes that the defendants were dressed in black military-style clothing. Some were wearing body armor, some were armed, and some had two-way radios. Prosecutors said a total of 12 sets of body armor were found during searches of vehicles associated with the defendants, on their persons, and in the area around the Prairieland Detention Center. Law enforcement also found spray paint, magazines containing ammunition, and flyers stating "Fight ICE Terror with Class War" and "Free all political prisoners." A flag was found that read "Resist Fascism, Fight Oligarchy." Gibson had two cell phones inside his backpack, inside a Faraday bag, that's funny, which is used to block phone signals and commonly used by criminal actors to try to prevent law enforcement from tracking their location, according to prosecutors. 2 days after the attack, Rueda allegedly called Daniel Rolando Sanchez, who was charged in a separate complaint, expressing concern police would conduct a search warrant on Rueda's home in Fort Worth. "Whatever you need to do, move whatever you need to move at the house," Rueda said, according to the court documents. The FBI conducted surveillance on another address in Garland, Texas, believed to be Sanchez's residence, and observed Sanchez carrying multiple packages to his truck. Agents followed Sanchez to an apartment in Denton. He carried a box inside which contained anti-government propaganda, including flyers stating "organizing for attack, insurrectionary anarchy," according to the complaint. The complaint was announced the same day that a man in a utility vest and armed with an assault rifle fired dozens of rounds at federal agents and a U.S. Border Patrol facility in McAllen, Texas, near the U.S.-Mexico border on Monday. A police officer was injured before authorities say they shot and killed the assailant, identified as 27-year-old Ryan Luis Mosqueda. Police say Mosqueda was linked to a Michigan address, but was reported missing from a Weslasco, Texas address around 4 a.m. Monday. Weslasco is about 20 miles from the Border Patrol facility. Hours before the attack in McAllen, Mosqueda's father was stopped by Weslasco police around 2:30 a.m. for a traffic violation, according to police spokesperson Heriberto Caraveo. The father told police that he was looking for his son, who said he who he said had psychological issues and was carrying weapons in his car, Caraveo told the Associated Press. Police say the white two-door sedan that Mosquedo drove to the facility had letters painted, possibly in Latin, on the driver's side door. What it means or whether or not it is an underlying reason for him being here, I do not know, Rodriguez said when asked about the graffiti. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche said Saturday that the Justice Department was closely monitoring the attacks on DHS detention facilities in Prairieland, Texas, and Portland, Oregon, and are coordinating the USAOs and our law enforcement partners. He said in a post to X, the department has zero tolerance for assaults on federal officers or property and will bring the full weight of the law against those responsible. An ICE facility in Portland, Oregon has faced repeated protests and attacks, and nearly 24 people have been arrested since June. Another 4 suspects were arrested for allegedly targeting the facility on the 4th of July, according to Oregon Live. Those defendants they name all of them, it doesn't matter. One of the guys is accused of tossing an incendiary device that exploded near federal officers outside the facility. Another is accused of kicking a federal officer who was chasing after another person who was allegedly tagging protective plywood with graffiti. Prosecutors say that another person used bolt cutters while attempting to damage an electronic card reader near the driveway of the ICE building. He was also spotted allegedly removing fiber optic cables, interrupting the internet service inside the building. McCarthy also allegedly kicked and punched officers while being placed under arrest. And these people all appeared in federal court on Monday, but all 3 were released pending future court proceedings. So that's what's going on with ICE. But again, keep an eye on this is something where we really need to be responsible as individuals of our communities, where we can really don't just watch something happen that you find morally incorrect and then post about it on social media. At least document it in the moment. Work together with other members of your community. We can stop this. We do not have to stand by idly as this happens. A little update on our friend, the Big Beautiful Bill, our main story from last week. This is from The Hill. Trump's Big Beautiful Bill lands in court already. So, and Trump has officially signed this into law. If you, because it wasn't official last week, but if you type in Big Beautiful Bill, you should get you can get the White House. White House comes up pretty early in the search. Whitehouse.gov, President Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill is now the law. They were so happy to post this on July 4th. And it goes over kind of all the stuff that we went over last week, obviously trying to make it seem like the best bill ever. Today, President Donald J. Trump officially signed the One Big Beautiful Bill into law, a once-in-a-generation piece of legislation that makes good on his campaign promises and puts America first. And then we go back to the Hill article. President Trump's signature second-term legislative agenda is hitting the courts. His Big Beautiful Bill is a boon for Second Amendment groups that say it aids their quest to strike down a 91-year-old gun law requiring many Americans to register their firearms. Meanwhile, a judge already intervened to block one provision of the massive package protecting Planned Parenthood from cuts. It has shifted the Trump administration's legal sagas from a tug-of-war between the judiciary and the executive to one involving the legislature. The package's top lines include key campaign promises such as tax breaks for overtime pay and tips and additional funding for immigration enforcement. But packed into the 887-page law is a key change for gun owners. It zeroes the $200 tax the National Firearms Act of 1934, NFA, has imposed on the manufacturing and transfer of firearm silencers, which we did talk about last week, and possibly even the week before, short-barreled rifles and short-barreled shotguns. The law has long been upheld under Congress's taxing authority, so gun rights groups wasted no time heading to court after Trump signed the bill on Independence Day, believing it dissolved the NFA's constitutional foundation. As the National Rifle Association put it, the mega bill is the biggest blow yet to the NFA. The gun industry wants a judge to end the NFA's requirements, such as buyers providing fingerprints and passing a background check for the now untaxed firearms. Republicans had wanted to do so in the bill itself, but the Senate parliamentarian ruled reconciliation rules didn't permit it. This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to dismantle one of the most abusive federal gun control laws on the books, Eric Pratt, senior vice president at Gun Owners of America, said in a statement. With the tax struck down by Congress, the rest of the NFA is standing on air. We're ready to take down this fight to the courts and finally end the federal registry once and for all, he continued. The groups filed their lawsuit in the San Angelo Division of the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Texas, where it was guaranteed to be assigned to U.S. District Judge Wes Hendricks, one of Trump's appointees. Meanwhile, a judge Monday issued the first known injunction against a provision of the Republicans' reconciliation package, temporarily blocking Medicaid funding cuts to Planned Parenthood's health centers. U.S. District Judge Indira Talwani's lightning-fast ruling, issued without explanation and before the government responded, sparked criticism from conservatives who see it as the latest instance of judges abusing their authority. Well, you know what? To that I say, judges were always abusing their authority, apparently, and you never said anything about it before, but now it's not working out for you. They were abusing it to help you, and now they're using it to let us, enjoy the whatever freedoms are left in our country. So, you know what? We'll take this one. We have the best judicial system in the world. Methinks not, but it's run by fallible, mortal humans. People make mistakes, Senator Mike Lee, Republican from Utah, wrote on the social platform X. But unless I'm missing something here, this wasn't an honest mistake. This was a pretty egregious judicial usurpation of legislative power, he continued, suggesting the House could try to impeach the judge. Talwani's ruling is temporary. The appointee of former President Obama is set to hold a July 21st hearing and then decide on whether to issue a longer injunction. Trump called the law, signed July 4th, a triumph of democracy on the birthday of democracy. It extends tax cuts he signed into law in 2017, eliminates some taxes on tipped wages, and increases the state and local tax deduction cap, in addition to cutting green energy incentives and providing $150 billion increases in immigration enforcement funding and defense spending each. So, more money for Netanyahu here, more money for ICE, and, the environment can continue crumbling on around us. The Senate passed the bill 51-50 following a tie-breaking vote from Vice President Vance, while the House voted 218-214 in favor of the legislation. A conservative commenter on Tuesday asked the president's cabinet whether it planned to challenge the rogue judge who ruled for Planned Parenthood and against a provision of the law. Attorney General Pam Bondi said, "Absolutely, we're on it," Bondi said. So that's what's going on with the big, beautiful bill. It's big. I don't know that it's beautiful, though. Moving into a topic that we were talking about earlier today with the landlord's game. This is an article by the Free Press that is talking about socialism. Again, obviously, it's something that we've talked about more and more as a country. Talked about more and more on this show, and certainly a very New York-y topic right now because of the, as I said earlier, Zoran Mamdani's win. And I think it's something that specifically, Gen Z and some millennials seem to be extremely interested in. And this kind of talks about why. And I think it's just something interesting to bring to the table. Tyler Cowen, why won't socialism die? The simple explanation is that people like free stuff. What's actually happening is a nationwide case of bad vibes. This is by Tyler Cowen from Tyler Cowen Must Know. Tyler Cowen And it's Cohen, spelled Cowen, just so you guys are aware, because different Cohens mean, different things, ethnicity wise. And, normally I wouldn't point that out, but it's in a culture where we're absolutely obsessed with the identities of people delivering messages to us. I do think it is important. So Tyler Cowen is Holbert L. Harris Professor of Economics at George Mason University and also faculty director of the Mercatus Center. He received his PhD in economics from Harvard University in 1987. His book, The Great Stagnation: How America Ate the Low-Hanging Fruit of Modern History, Got Sick, and Will Eventually Feel Better, was a New York Times bestseller. He was named in an Economist poll as one of the most influential economists of the last decade, and Bloomberg Businessweek dubbed him America's hottest economist. Foreign Policy magazine named him as one of its top 100 global thinkers of 2011. He co-writes a blog at marginalrevolution.com, hosts a podcast, Conversations with Tyler, and is co-founder of an online economics education project, MRU.org. He is also director of the philanthropic project Emergent Ventures. So no matter what you think of the article, he does seem to be qualified to write it. All right, I'm going to take a sip of water because Free Press likes to go, speaking of going rogue, they love to go rogue with their articles. All right. Why are so many young people today turning to socialism? By socialism, I mean an economic system where the government nationalizes the means of production, if not in all industries, at least in some critical ones. But as we shall see, many of those attracted to socialism these days may be more attached to negative vibes about the status quo than any particular economic system. And I think this is an interesting point right out of the gates, right? It's certainly even something that is interesting to me. Socialism really doesn't do it for me specifically, but it's also like capitalism isn't doing it for me. So I think, many people are saying, well, what we have now isn't working. This seems like my only other option. And I hate the status quo and I hate the people in charge. And so I'm going to just take this other thing that is being offered to me or being sold to me or being packaged and presented to me. Which is, again, I'm very wary of the DSA. And it's not because the word socialism is in it. It's because of the cult-like quality and the way they turn on people who don't exactly uphold their template. That to me is culty, and I don't like it. I'm very anti-cult no matter what the cult is promising, serving. It could be literally a cult about the Spice Girls should be queen, or something that I like, and I would still I am just very against cult-like things. I didn't even like when I was a girl in middle school or early high school when it come out. I didn't like when I was a girl in grade school and everyone liked the movie Titanic so much and you had to have seen the movie Titanic. I specifically still haven't seen the movie Titanic because of that. So when we're talking about my absolute aversion to cult-like behavior, that's what I'm talking about. Just so you know where I'm coming from. This is most evident in the recent New York City electoral results of Zohran Mamdani, who did very well in the Democratic primary for mayor and is polling well ahead of sitting Mayor Eric Adams and former Governor Andrew Cuomo. In the most recent poll today, Zohran was still ahead by 10. I don't know if they meant 10 points or 10%. I think 10 points perhaps they meant. Then Andrew Cuomo was number 2 and Eric Adams was still so far behind. He was in 4th place. That means Curtis Sliwa, who doesn't have a chance in hell, was beating him. I know Mike loves Curtis Sliwa, but
show us some courtesy, Curtis.
He's not winning though.
Kitty Mayor for life.
I thought there was a world in which if this election really went haywire that Curtis Sliwa could win, but I think that opportunity has gone away. Anyway,
why do you say that?
Well, because
I don't see the Republicans flipping for Cuomo.
I feel like people would vote for him. I think people would vote for Cuomo as a vote against Mamdani. I think they still would do that.
No.
I think they would.
You are underestimating how much the right hates Andrew Cuomo. I don't care what he says.
Do you think they would vote for Eric Adams?
Yes.
Okay,
I think they would vote for Adams.
Well, then we can apply the same thing to Eric Adams, though. But I think
Sliwa over Adams, though.
We'll see.
We've had Adams.
Adams has been working, but the devil that you know is better than the devil that you don't know. That's what people vote like that.
Yeah,
a
but
lot.
those same people know Curtis. Like those same people listen to WABC and are locked into what he's got going on.
We'll see. I just feel like Curtis's campaign is not strong enough, and I feel like people actually are.
What are you talking about? He's reaching out to those young hip millennials. That's his actual campaign thing. Is like I'm hip with the millennials, and it's like, dog. The millennials are 40.
I really have not heard much from him, and I think that he needs to perform much better, at least on social media, if he has any shot. Anyway, all right. By socialism, I mean an economic system. All right, we went over here. So this is most evident in the recent New York City electoral results of Zoran Mamdani, who did very well in the Democratic primary for mayor and is polling well ahead of sitting mayor Eric Adams and former governor Andrew Cuomo. Among other things, Mamdani has called for government-run grocery stores, rent freezes, and free buses. These pronouncements have not created a scandal with his supporters. Indeed, they have occasioned tremendous enthusiasm. I understand why such proposals might thrill some New Yorkers, especially struggling young people. But as an economist, I know there is long-standing research showing, for example, that rent freezes lead to apartment shortages and also to quality collapses and deteriorating neighborhoods. I do want to point out again, though, this is rent freezes only for people who already have rent-stabilized apartments. So I don't think the effect on either end of the spectrum would be as drastic. Like, I don't think it would be as drastically helpful as Zoran Mamdani presents, but I also don't think it would be as detrimental as this writer presents. But that, of course, is not an exciting story, you know? Ultimately, it hurts the working class. I also know that the government does not have the flexibility or the profit incentives to do a good job running our grocery stores. This was like, to me, the least interesting part of of Zoran's campaign, just because we have so many poorly run city things in New York City. To me, it's like, oh yeah, let's put them in charge of the grocery stores now and see what a shit show that is. Again, I understand where it's coming from. Everything is so expensive. Capitalism, consumerism, yada, yada, yada. This to me just didn't seem like a feasible or good idea where things were going to go well. But, again, we'll see. It's kind of like, doesn't really matter either way.
We've seen grocery stores under socialism. It's nice. You get to talk to your neighbor in the bread line for 7 hours.
Oh, boy. Let's see. Ultimately, it hurts working class. I also know that the government, grocery stores, okay, they probably would lose money trying, forcing taxpayers to make up the difference. And even the Soviet Union did not wish to experiment with completely free bus rides. Usually, service quality is higher when the users have to pay something, thereby boosting the incentives to take their desires seriously. Such ideas aren't just spreading in New York. Polling shows that socialist sympathies are widespread. In one survey, 62% of American young people had a positive opinion of socialism, and 34% had a positive view of communism. Meantime, only 46% have a positive impression of big business, lower than that of previous generations. It is a long-standing task of social scientists, perhaps the most tireless one, to try to explain the popularity of socialism. Economics Nobel laureate Friedrich A. Hayek attributed it to mankind's atavistic instincts left over from earlier, poorer societies when extreme sharing was necessary. Milton Friedman treated the socialists as though they were well-intentioned individuals who simply had not learned enough good economics. That I could understand, because I do think the intention is good. Like, if we have enough for everyone, if we all share, right? Like, that's kind of the foundation of the idea of socialism, and that does sound like a good idea. But he's kind of in a nice way saying, it's a nice idea from people who didn't do well in math at school, which Corinne Fisher raises her hand at, because we're empathetic people who didn't do well in math at school. Like, I can get on that bus.
Yeah, but these are the same people who would say, yes, it makes great market sense to let a man die outside of a food store building of starvation.
Yeah,
because he can't pay for it.
Well, for sure. And that's kind of what they were talking about at the top of the article. Is socialism popular just because we have seen the negative effects of capitalism, and we are seeing it more and more. We have more access to seeing things because we live in a technological world. So that to me makes sense, what he was, kind of, saying. Because, young people say, well, we know we don't like capitalism because that's what we've had. So let's try this other thing. Joseph Schumpeter believed it was the curse of capitalism that the intellectuals would turn against it, an idea later seconded by Robert Nozick. Peter Thiel more recently has blamed student debt and the high cost of buying a home. When one has too much student debt or if housing is too unaffordable, then one will have negative capital for a long time, he said. And if one has no stake in the capitalist system, then one may well turn against it. And we don't love Peter Thiel here, where I don't personally, but, as the authors, as usual, Peter has a point. And that actually is a good point. There is truth in all of these hypotheses, and there are others yet, but focusing on 2025, I have a more concrete and perhaps more depressing explanation. Socialism is surging right now because American society has simply turned more negative. We complain more, we whine more, and we are more likely to dislike each other. And if we are more negative, that means we are more negative about everything around us, including capitalism. Well, and that's interesting because it's like very much this like, everything around me is making my life hard. So that's my government, my girlfriend, my boyfriend, my the throuple next door, like everyone's turning, my parents, we have really seen this influx in like all these things in my life are the problem. I'm not talking to my parents. I'm not talking to my best friend. I'm not getting married. I'm not having kids, and we're all, we're kind of all a part of that.
There's no ethical consumption under girlfriends.
And if we are more negative, that means we are more negative about everything around us, including capitalism. Big business has never been bigger, and we have never spent more time with it, whether it is scrolling on our smartphones, calling up an Uber, or flying to another city, which I think is a great point, right? Because all of these people who hate capitalism also are the people who are doing all of these things. They are ordering on Amazon. They do have iPhones. That's how they're sharing all these infographics about how terrible capitalism is. And they are using Uber. They are using Lyft. They are going on, planes to see Taylor Swift in other cities. So this really is extremely interesting. It's like, even if you do think there are some positives to socialism, do you really want to be without all the luxuries of capitalism? And I really think the answer is no for most of us. It actually reminds me of this past season of what's the one where they all stay at the fucking hotel? What is this called?
MILF Manor.
What? No, the one that oh god, I feel like an old person.
Only Murderers in the Building?
No. They're in Thailand or whatever.
Oh, White Lotus.
White Lotus. This reminds me. So the daughter of one of the of the family on vacation. Sorry, this will be a spoiler, but not a big one. On White Lotus, she decides that she wants to go on this Buddhist silent monk retreat or something, and then basically she's from a very rich family, and she's been reading all these texts and stuff, and then she goes to visit, and for one night, and she has to sleep on this really uncomfortable mattress, and there's no air conditioning, and she doesn't have her phone and all this kind of stuff, and she comes back and she's like, this makes me think less of myself that I wasn't able to do it, but I really can't live without the luxuries that I have in this lifestyle, that my parents have provided for me. And I really think that is, especially after I watch liberals protest, that is really what I think of it. And I am not someone who has ever claimed that I could live without these things. But I also it's funny because, again, living in New York City, and I talk about this a lot before, and I was talking about it with my mom when I saw her a couple weeks ago. It's like, yeah, I wouldn't like living without, Uber Eats or whatever either. But I've also spent a lot more time without a lot more things than the people I'm surrounded with in New York City. Because again, every Christmas, I just look at Instagram and I go, did I grow up poor? I just see everyone else's house and see how they celebrate and see that. And I go, was I poor? Did I? Because I didn't know. If I was, I didn't know. But I go, why does everyone's house look so much bigger than mine? Consider the kinds of socialist doctrine we see in the public sphere today. The core message is negative, and much of the hostility is directed toward billionaires, even though the wealthiest of them typically have been fantastically productive innovators. The core message is negative, and much of the hostility is directed toward billionaires, even though the wealthiest of them typically have been fantastically productive innovators. Okay, sorry, I was just rereading that sentence for my own comprehension. Zoran Mamdani says that billionaires should not exist. It is more about tearing down the rich than raising up the poor, which is also just, again, like millionaires and billionaires are two completely different concepts, right? And one of the things I love most about America is that you can pursue greatness here in a way that you cannot in many other countries. And that is because of capitalism. And so, and I've talked about this concept before, but like there is something about, I do not like that, so many people have so little and so many people have so much. That bothers me. And, we all like to think that if we were a billionaire, we would just share our wealth. And I think there are many people, usually the female ones, a lot of, wives of, these people have been, getting divorces and then spreading out the wealth. And that's been really lovely to see. And there are certainly people who are extremely wealthy. One of my favorite follows on Instagram is the woman who created Spanx. She's a great businesswoman. She's very, very philanthropic, but she's like a real person. Even though she has a lot of money, you can tell that she didn't grow up rich, and so she just really cares about creating good stuff and treating her team well and inspiring you to be the best version of yourself, and just a million things I like about her. But she's a very wealthy woman now, extremely wealthy. Spanx is worth a lot of money, and those are the kind of people that I like. And so again, it's just funny to me, that someone who is the child of multimillionaires, powerful multimillionaires at that, is someone who is saying billionaires should not exist, and also selling this story that he lives in an apartment that costs $2,000 a month. And like, you might, but you have a lot of familial wealth. And which is, again, fine if you weren't like making up a fake story around it. Well, what began with the Bernie bros and the so-called dirtbag left that, in much the manner of Trump, reveled in dismantling the guardrails of, sorry, just one more thing about that, because, a lot of people, the whole throughout the whole campaign, be like, what makes you different than Zoran? And go, so much. We're not even really that similar, besides the fact that we're both trying to run young, energetic campaigns here. But also, like, my whole campaign wasn't like, I am not trying to hide the money I made. I am trying to actually say New York City is the city that I moved to pursue greatness. I pursued it, and I got a piece of that greatness. I got to become the best, not, we're never the best until the end, but I got to become a better version of myself here. I got to challenge myself in a way that I don't think another city would have challenged me. I got to rub elbows and compete with the best of the best, and I made it, and I made myself money, and I lifted myself up into a different tax bracket that I was born into, and I have these tools, and I want to share these tools with you. So it's not like it was about like very like a teach a man to fish kind of a thing. It's like, you can do this, and let me give you the resources and show you how to do it, which I think is more workable in a capitalist society, right? Because no matter what happens to New York City, we can become, socialist, but then we will be a socialist major city in a capitalist country, which I don't see how that's going to work. Or you can stop gatekeeping the tools of capitalism and continue to be a capitalist city, but be a capitalist city where we create and spread resources and knowledge, which was that. So that was my idea. All right. what began with the Bernie bros and this so-called dirtbag left that, in much the manner of Trump, reveled in dismantling the guardrails of civilized conversation, has now become normal behavior among many socialist influencers. One of the most prominent is my buddy Hassan Piker. To choose just one of the countless examples, the Twitch star spoke about an American war hero in this way. Quote, "What the fuck is wrong with this dude? Didn't he go to war and literally lose his eye because some Mujahideen, a brave fucking soldier, fucked his eye hole with their dick? He suggested that the brave soldier deserved his fate, and he stated on several occasions that America deserved 9/11. It's funny because I believe, I have journal entries from 9/11. I was a sophomore in high school, I believe, and I think that Hassan Piker is definitely saying it in a different way. But I do remember having the feeling as a teenager, not that we deserved 9/11, but that it was smug of us to think as a country that something like 9/11 couldn't happen to us. And so even though I don't love Hassan Piker, I actually kind of understand what he's saying there. Piker is a passionate socialist and supporter, among others, of Zoran Mamdani. Perhaps you'll say, what do his appalling views on America have to do with his economic outlook? Well, they are both the result of an unrelenting negativity, carping spirit, and lack of appreciation for achievement and greatness. And my thoughts on this, there is, I do find a lot of the people who love socialism are also really, really anti-America. It was weird. I love to really lean into the tongue-in-cheekness of the 4th of July. And I do feel like there was a part of me that was just oh, is it going to rub people the wrong way that I'm going to post pictures from the 4th of July, including of me wearing a bikini top with the American flag on it? And I was like, fuck it. The people who don't understand where I'm coming from shouldn't be following me in the first place. So I posted it anyway. But, I am a patriotic lib, and I really want to bring patriotism back to the left because even the essence of being able to be an outspoken liberal is something that doesn't exist many places. So the fact that we love to criticize the government and the fact that we like to say, fuck the government, and I'm not doing that, that is American. So you can't say you hate America because you actually don't. And I just don't think many people who say that they hate America in that way would fare very well. And I'm talking about a lot of mostly pretty privileged white people. Saying I hate America is much different, especially for Black Americans. Saying I hate America, well, that to me is different. That's not that's not anti-patriotic in any way. That's saying I am angry at this place that I was taken to, my family was taken to against their will, with bad intentions. And I am here and I against my will, and I was treated badly and my family was treated badly, and I still don't have equality. That's a completely different conversation. But just hating America, I just go, compared to what here? Again, we certainly have a lot of problems that we need to fix, and this seems crazy, but we are only 249 years old. We're approaching our 250th, but we're only 249 years old. That's really young for a country. And so it's not surprising that things are really bad right now. We're not in the flow, when you compare it to I don't know, what's a place that people say they really like? France, I guess. How old is France? How old is France? So they, France in comparison, that's just a place where people really engage in protests in a way that a lot of Americans seem to be jealous of these days. Approximately they're saying it can be France's age can be described as over 1,500 years old. So just compare that. It took them 1,500 years to get where they are now. We're only on 249. So just keep that in mind. Even staunch Democratic Party supporters such as Matt Iglesias and Noah Smith have wondered whether parts of the progressive left might be explained in part by feelings of depression and also too high a desire to feel outrage. Matt even wrote more evidence of the increasingly porous boundaries between mental illness and left-wing politics. I think you're going to get into mental illness with any of these extremes. If you're extremely left or extremely right, I think you're going to see a lot of overlap of mental illness there. Another target of rising dislike is Republicans, especially of the MAGA sort. According to one poll, 45% of Democrats say they would be unhappy if their child were to marry a Republican. That kind of polarization was once much weaker. There is also good evidence that social media has taken on a stronger negative emotional valence over time. Researchers found that from 2013 to 2024 in social media, there has been a sharp rise in negative emotions, particularly anger. Of course, your anger will make other people angrier too, and that will make you angry at a relatively capitalist status quo. You will feel like a socialist even if you have never thought through the option of running America's retail shopping malls from Washington, D.C., an unwise idea to be sure, yet definitely a socialist one. Socialism has ceased to be a comparative doctrine, hint, it will lose, and rather has evolved into a stand-in for very negative feelings about the status quo and the operation of capitalism. Well, and I would also say that social media, it doesn't just make you angrier, because you're disagreeing with people, you're also seeing a lot of things that you don't have that you want, right? And that is capitalism, right? You're seeing other people that you know in real life who are going on vacations that you can't afford, or have cars that you can't afford, or are wearing outfits that you can't afford, or are getting, I think this, this extended talk about aesthetic procedures is like, yeah, we're talking about it under the guise of we care about everyone's mental health and we don't want to gatekeep stuff. But I really think that's a larger conversation about capitalism. I think most people, if they could afford all the plastic surgery in the world, a lot more people would get it, right? I know I certainly would get more plastic surgery if it wasn't as expensive. I have cellulite on my legs, for example, and there are laser treatments I could get for like $10,000 where I don't have to do any of the other fucking work. And certainly that's a lot more appealing than me, getting retinol cream and having to scrub my legs for 20 minutes until they heat up every night. But, even though I could afford it, it doesn't seem like a good use with my, it doesn't seem like a good use of money. I don't have so much money that I can just be spending $10,000 on cellulite treatments that only, last for 2 years, right? And so I think a lot of the anger also comes from like, I want these, I'm so angry that you have this thing that I don't have. And all these people who love socialism, I do wonder if things change tomorrow, if they won the lottery, if they invented something incredible and they became a multi-millionaire or a billionaire overnight, would they still feel the same way about capitalism? And I'm not saying yes or no, I'm just presenting it as a, why are we so angry? And I think there's a different way to look at social media. Like for me, I'm certainly seeing people who are hotter than me, people who have more money than me, people whose careers are going better than me. But that's one algorithm. You know what the algorithm I choose for myself is? I choose an algorithm where I have this amazing device in my hand where I can watch how people live in other cultures and in other places and in different walks of life in a way that I would never be able to. I would never have all the time. One of my favorite accounts is following this woman, Miriam, who's an Orthodox Jew. I'm not friends, in real life. I don't have any close friends who are Orthodox Jews. It's probably not a lifestyle I would be overly exposed to, but it's really opened my world, opened my eyes up. And it's like, yeah, this is not something I would choose for myself, but it's really helping me to see and understand why someone might choose this lifestyle for themselves, and it's really positive. So that's what you can choose to use social media in a positive way. You don't have to choose the algorithm that makes you angry. There are upsides to it. I have a core theory that ties together these developments. I call it negative emotional contagion. It's simple. If other people in society become grumpier, we are more likely to become grumpy too. And also, I feel like we live in a society where, like, when something good happens to me, like, especially these days, like, I am, like, less interested in sharing it online because we all do have to, like, it feels like we all have to present ourselves as victims or as people who are constantly upset. And it's like, yes, like, was I absolutely devastated over the flooding in Texas? Yes. But did I also have an incredible 4th of July weekend, spending time with my friends in a way that I haven't in a long time, and opened up my home in a way that I haven't since, in many years because of all the grief that I've gone through personally. So those two things can be true at once. And it's almost become like everyone has to be like performatively like grief stricken all the time by the state of the world. But like, are you like, and you can be in your heart upset about what's happening. That doesn't mean that every moment of your personal life and day is going to be filled with tragedy. And like, quite frankly, I think if you're walking around with your like pretending it is, that you're putting on a fucking performance. You can care about the larger state of the world. And this is like, not obviously if you live by where the flooding is happening, but it's just like, I know so many people who like on social media are like, we're talking, if you're celebrating the 4th of July, you're crazy. But it's like, bitch, I know you were at a party. I know you were on vacation. I know you were traveling abroad. Like, stop putting on the performance. These are people I know in real life. I'm not going to call them out by name, but so many people are like, I know you were at a party, or like you were literally at my barbecue, and the memes that you are posting in your Instagram story do not match. You were fucking eating a hamburger on a lawn chair. Just like, stop the performance. Who is it for? If someone insults us, we are more likely to insult them back. If someone tries to cancel us out of a job and livelihood, we are more likely to retaliate, and so on. We see evidence for this kind of symmetric behavior every day, most of all online, an eye for an eye, right? But the implications of this dynamic are rarely thought through. When psychological contagion is present, social trends can spread quickly, and they also can spread far and wide. If the mood in society becomes much more negative, a small initial change in negativity can lead to much larger, longer run boosts in bad feelings. You can see this right in front of your eyes. Think about what happens when a stadium crowd starts booing an athlete, or if a comic bombs in a nightclub. Such processes operate at the macro level as well, and that, in essence, means that our societies are vulnerable to mood swings. Many people, such as Jonathan Haidt, attribute this negative social contagion to social media. But such negative emotional contagion is a well-established social phenomenon long before smartphones and Facebook. In the years leading up to World War I, for instance, European diplomacy became more tense. European societies felt more alienated, as author Philip Blom has referred to the Vertigo years in his book of the same title. Music became more dissonant, and art became more fractured and less representational. Traditional beauty was no longer such an ideal, and atonal music was in the ascendancy. One can debate the initial causes of such developments, but the relevant point is, once they got started, they acquired a momentum of their own. And so a relatively wealthy and peaceful European society moved from its golden age of the mid to late 19th century to rising tensions and eventually horrific bloodshed. That isn't to say there were not some tremendously evil actors on the scene, but it was negative social contagion at its worst, and the philosophies of fascism and Nazism put human beings at each other's throats that led to World War II. In contrast, consider the American Revolution as having led to a lot of positive social contagion. The successful liberation of the colonies from Britain sparked interest in liberty-oriented rebellions in France, Switzerland, and in the Caribbean, and later Latin America too. Historian Robert Palmer once wrote a book called The Age of the Democratic Revolution, arguing that each of these revolutions helped to encourage and spur the next one. Such mood swings have always been with us, but these days they seem to be especially virulent. Perhaps bad events are to blame for the initial uptick in negative feelings. In 2001, hijackers flew planes into the Twin Towers, a previously unimaginable event for most Americans. The United States was taken down a peg. The Second Iraq War then failed. The Great Recession came in 2008, followed by a slow labor market bounce back. COVID and its aftermath were the next nightmare. Should it be such a huge surprise if the negative feelings have dug in and stuck? One offshoot of all these negative feelings has been a very dark, pessimistic socialism. The 19th century had a good deal of what is called utopian socialism, which stressed how wonderful everything would become, at least after the government nationalized the assets. It was more about creating an age of plenty than hating the wealthy fat cats. The French socialist Charles Fourier wrote of free sex, oceans full of lemonade, and ships pulled by dolphins. Even the Soviet Union had some positive and forward-looking elements to its socialist doctrine. The stated goal was to overtake the United States, not degrowth. You were supposed to have kids to support the glory of communism, not give up on the idea because the world was too dreadful. Socialist labor was supposed to be fun and rewarding, not something to whine about. Furthermore, there were top performers in every category, including in schools. Moscow State University was a self-consciously elite institution that intended to remain as such. However skewed the standards may have been, there was an intense desire to measure the best, and sometimes reward them with foreign travel, and as in chess and pianism, like piano playing. I guess I never heard it said it in that tense. In an often distorted and unfair way, some parts of the Soviet system respected the notion of progress. For all the horrors of Soviet communism, at least along a few dimensions, it had better ideals than some of those from today, including the undesirability of having children and a dislike of economic growth. I think this, author, because he's male, is kind of only giving one reason why people have a lesser desire to have children. But the woe is the world is certainly a large reason. So I won't go into a feminist rant right now. That being said, I wouldn't really take a man's perspective on the undesirability of having children, but okay. One strength of the negative contagion explanation for socialist loyalties is that it helps explain movements on the other side of the political spectrum as well, namely the right wing. It's not just the far left that's going negative, it's the right too. Earlier versions of right-wing views such as Reagan's conservatism or social conservatism thought in terms of America as a shining city on a hill. The libertarians also had a fundamentally positive worldview of how individuals were capable of enjoying liberty and turning it toward broader social benefit. These days, an attitude of confrontation has replaced those visions. Owning the libs is now a priority. Belief in conspiracies is much more common, and anti-Semitism runs rampant. A mean streak is increasingly on public display, including from the president and his vice president. They are resurrecting many earlier socialist ideals, such as the notion that business should be subservient to government leaders, and that more and more of the economy should be managed through industrial policy. It's striking how much the current negativist right wing has taken from the earlier pessimistic side of the left. Some strands of the earlier left were quite positive and constructive, such as the emphasis on free speech and gay rights, but the earlier left also had a more negative and pessimistic side. It showed up in the form of tariff advocacy, food and biomedical conspiracy theories, anti-Fed sentiment, dislike of globalization, and the wish to pull back America from its central role in guaranteeing liberties around the world. Those strands have not disappeared in American thought. Rather, they have come back with a vengeance in the new pessimistic political right. There is plenty of evidence that Generation Z leans to the right, especially the younger boys. They are more right-wing than millennials, for instance. You might think that refutes the hypothesis of a trend towards socialism, but sadly, it does not. We are getting both negative trends at the same time at the expense of the middle. It is a single unified trend, but with two distinct branches, each observing and citing the other in a manner designed to support its own critical attitudes. After all, the other side really is that terrible. Let me tell you, as a Libra, what a time not to be a Libra, because I love making compromises, seeing other people's side, in politics, not in relationships. Once societies get caught in this trap of dark moods and views, and it's also like we are in a time when it's so in vogue to be extreme that someone presenting something even kind of in the middle as a compromise is just looked on as like not exciting, right? Once societies get caught in this trap of dark moods and views, it is hard for them to get out of the box, even though the United States has historically high living standards and also falling crime rates, as Clifford S. Asness and Michael R. Strain argued in this essay recently published in the Free Press. If you would like some more good news, it is that societies can escape from this trap of back and forth nastiness. They have in the past, such as when Europe rebuilt from the horrors of World War II, when America bounced back from the Civil War, and now as present-day Poland puts its socialist past behind it to become a highly successful and happy nation. But large numbers of people have to put on more positive attitudes and indeed back it up with their actions. And, I think he's like kind of boiling it down to like, a positive attitude here. But I think that this is kind of what I'm saying when, on this show we talk about it could be worse, right? Or like the need to still love our country if you want to remain here. And certainly you can leave, as we talked about earlier on the show, many other countries don't want us, So, while you might think that all immigrants should be welcome in America, you have to understand that many other countries unfortunately work the same way that we do, and that foreigners are not wanted. And as an American, I think sometimes we forget that in any other country, we are a foreigner. And we forget that we actually don't, we say, oh, I'm going to move to Europe, or I'm going to move. Have you ever thought that maybe these other countries don't want you? Right? And I think, so even though you think like, I'm going to move someplace else, I'm sick of America. Well, isn't that a very American attitude of you to have? That you think you are welcome any other place? Or that you have carte blanche in where you can go, because you don't, right? And so what I think is more noble than fleeing is really rolling up your sleeves and trying to give a shit about the place that you were born into. Even though, and especially, especially for white people, or, people who have been here for many generations at least. Because I think so often we are really taking for granted what we have, and also taking for granted how much control we can have over the situation here if we started giving a shit, beyond our family who lives in our house. And again, the fact that we only care about our families who live in our houses is very American of us.
Do you believe that?
What?
That we can affect change?
Yes.
I mean, when you've seen the entire country kind of, left, right, everybody's on the same page about, we all want to know what actually was going on with this Epstein character, and the DOJ and FBI come out this week and say, yeah, it was nothing, and we're never going to tell you what it was. Can you actually have faith that you as an individual can change a system that is so clearly rigged against you?
Yes, but the Epstein one is a weird example because, that's not something that is directly affecting most of the people in this country. That's not like the Epstein, files is disgusting and shit, but it's not why we don't have health care, or it's not why we can't afford rent.
I mean, it
so I'm
very
saying,
well might be.
Okay. Well, I think this.
No, I mean, I'm serious. Like, if our politicians who are making policy that's making it hard for us to own a home or get student loans or whatever is going on, if the highest levels of government are all tainted with a blackmail scandal that is intended to make the lives of average Americans worse, and we are never going to find out about it, yeah, I think it does directly affect us a lot more than you're giving it credit for.
I hear what you're saying. That's just not where I would particularly start. I mean, the problem is we can't all fucking agree on anything, right? So, I mean, step one is we literally all just decide not to pay our taxes. That's step one. We just all don't pay our taxes. But the thing is, there are so many people who would not do that, like who would not be willing to do that for whatever reason it is. But that's what you start doing. You really have organized protests where, you know, the 99% of us really unite on one simple thing, like whatever that is. Like, we are not going to pay our taxes until, and then we pick one thing. The problem is, how are we all going to agree on that one thing? That's the problem. We need to start agreeing on these large things that affect most of us, even if it's not something that personally affects you or I. And that's, again, like the problem that I see, that I saw on, certainly on a citywide level in New York City. I see it on the left. Everyone has these like micro causes that they are obsessed with. And that like I get an email every day from this group of people who are demanding extra funding for public libraries. And while I agree that is extremely important, like, I know the people in that group think that is the number one issue affecting New York City, and it's just not. It's just not. It's very important, but it is not the number one concern when we're talking about like the human welfare in New York City. It's just not. And I know that there's no way that I could have a conversation with the people who are emailing me every day to make them think otherwise. And like that stubbornness and our obsession with like our own micro issues is the problem. I mean, it's something I've experienced not just on this show, but on Guys We Fucked all the time. I would take a time out to talk about one group of, women in the world or something, and I would get 50 emails. How about this group? How about this group? How about this group? And I go, that's just not who I was talking about right now. But okay. All right. Let's see. What's the time? Right. Okay. I want to talk about. That was very appropriate for this. Well, let's talk about Epstein since you just brought him up. This is from Al Jazeera. Why is MAGA angry with Trump, Pam Bondi over Epstein files? Right-wing conspiracy theorists have raised questions about a new government memo and video about Epstein.
Right-wing?
Yeah.
All right. I think this is a more across the aisle issue, but
I just picked it from Al Jazeera.
I hear you.
I was just trying to get another news source in here, and I was like, well, Al Jazeera, this is completely out of left field. On Tuesday, United States President Donald Trump and U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi evaded questions from reporters on a recent government review about the accused sex trafficker and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The Federal Bureau of Investigation and the U.S. Department of Justice concluded that Epstein died by suicide in 2019 in a Manhattan jail cell. However, questions are coming from right-wing conspiracy theorists, many of whom are part of Trump's MAGA base, who have long posited widely circulated conspiracy claims that Epstein was murdered because he possessed sexually compromising material on powerful figures and a client list. And I agree with you. I mean, I literally have a shirt from Assholes Live Forever, Kirill's brand, that says Epstein didn't kill himself. And, I'm certainly not part of MAGA. Here is what we know about how the Epstein case is causing a MAGA split. Why have MAGA conspiracy theories about Epstein resurfaced now? And again, this is just the way, I guess, Al Jazeera sees it. A memo released on Monday by the Department of Justice and the FBI stated that a government review had found no evidence that Epstein had a specific secret client list. The memo also reaffirmed that Epstein had died by suicide, stating this conclusion is consistent with previous findings, including the August 19th, 2019 autopsy findings of the New York City office of the chief medical examiner. the November 2019 position of the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York in connection with the investigation of federal correctional officers responsible for guarding Epstein, and the June 2023 conclusions of DOJ's Office of the Inspector General. However, right-wing Americans and online sleuths have long posed conspiracy theories that the government covered up the truth of Epstein's death. The latest memo has sparked these back into action. Besides the memo, the DOJ released a video of Monday of Epstein's jail cell on the night he died, showing that no one entered Epstein's jail cell during the night. In the video, however, the time code jumps by 1 minute and 2 seconds just before midnight, further inflaming the conspiracy theorists. Well, and also, like, he could have actually killed himself, but he could have been basically given a choice. That he could have been given a choice, like, either you kill yourself or I'm going to kill you. Like, that's also another theory. What did Trump say to reporters about Jeffrey Epstein?
Not only that, though, did you see the door thing?
No.
Okay, the door in that video that Pam Bondi posted with the missing minute is completely different from the door that was used in, like, here. So this is the...
Wait, how long is the video? I saw snippets of it, but I don't think I sat and watched the whole thing.
So that's the video that obviously has the police tape from,
okay,
the incident, and then... Well, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a crime scene.
Sure.
So we know that this was the door that they were using.
Right.
And then this was the image that the DOJ released. So that's supposed to be his cell number 46.
It's a different color.
It's a different color, and it's a completely different
style door.
Yeah.
And wait, go back again. It's different type.
The handle is facing a different way. It's horizontal here. It's vertical in this one.
Yeah.
So it's a little suspect. Is all I'm saying.
For sure. And, like, also, like, why release? Also, like, just pay someone to fucking doctor it if you're going to release it this willy-nilly. What did Trump say to reporters about Jeffrey Epstein? During a White House cabinet meeting on Tuesday, a reporter asked Bondi about the missing minute on the Epstein prison video. The reporter said, can you turn your mic off because I can hear, like, that back noise? The reporter said the memo released yesterday on Jeffrey Epstein, it left some lingering mysteries, and one of the biggest ones is whether he worked for an American or foreign intelligence agency. Could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the night of his death? Trump jumped in asking, are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years, with clear frustration. Donald Trump's response was Marsha. Are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable, Trump added, before asking Bondi if she wanted to waste time answering the question. Trump shut the question off, saying, I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this, when we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas, referring to flash floods that roiled the southern U.S. state over the weekend.
You didn't do the quote justice.
What?
He said, we're having some of the greatest success. And also a tragedy in Texas.
Is that how he said it?
I mean, it was legit, he hung on the success for quite some time and then remembered, oh, yeah, there's over 100 children dead in Texas. I got to mention them.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. I'm so glad you're here, Mike.
I'm locked in on this one.
Yeah, I didn't hear him say, again, the problem with reading most of my news. It just seems like a desecration, Trump added. I'm proud of him for using the word desecration. While campaigning for the presidential election last year, however, Trump had said he would release files related to Epstein. Bondi told the reporter that she had no knowledge about Epstein being an agent. We can get back to you on that, she said.
That was a quote from, because the reporter asked her, the Trump's secretary, I think it was his Secretary of State or Secretary of Energy, one or the other. But at the time, he was the DA who prosecuted Epstein in the Palm Beach case years ago. The one where they said he's he's a convicted sex offender. It's from that case. And he is on record saying we had the FBI and other intelligence agencies come to us and tell us to go easy on him because he's an asset. That's a direct quote. From somebody who was in Trump's cabinet at one time.
She added that the prison camera system was old, from 1999. Every night the video is reset and every night should have the same minute missing. So we're looking for that video to release that as well, showing that a minute is missing every night, and that's it on Epstein, she said. It's very weird. Born and raised in New York, Epstein was a millionaire financier known for associating with socialites, politicians, and celebrities. He died in a Manhattan jail cell on August 10th, 2019. In 2005, Epstein was accused of sexually assaulting a 14-year-old girl after her parents reported it to the police. This led to the police speaking to more girls who came forward to make similar allegations. Ultimately, in 2008, Epstein pleaded guilty to a charge relating to a single victim. He spent 13 months in prison on a work release program, which allowed him to leave jail to go to work during the day and return at night. In 2019, he was charged with sex trafficking by federal prosecutors in New York. The U.S. attorney in Manhattan also prosecuted Epstein's former girlfriend, Ghislaine, wait, how do you say Ghislaine? I haven't said. I used to call her Jizzy, so I forgot how to actually say her real name. Ghislaine Maxwell, daughter of the disgraced media mogul Robert Maxwell, who died in 1991 after being accused of stealing from employees' pensions in the UK. Ghislaine Maxwell was accused of being Epstein's co-conspirator in his sexual abuse scheme. Maxwell was convicted in 2021 and is currently serving a 20-year prison sentence that she received in 2022. In January last year, some 950 pages of court documents pertaining to allegations against Epstein were made public. These documents contained accounts by Epstein's victims saying that they saw prominent figures, including musicians, academics, and politicians in Epstein's company, from Michael Jackson to Bill Clinton. The inclusion of a name in the file does not indicate that there are any allegations against the individual, and the individuals listed in these files were not Epstein's clients. What do conspiracy theorists believe about Epstein's death and why? Theories about that Epstein's death was covered up by the government, according to some, because he was a spy for unknown agencies, have been floating around in right-wing circles throughout the 6 years since his death. In 2022, FBI agents searched Trump's Mar-a-Lago club and residence because the National Archives wanted to ensure Trump did not have any classified documents taken during his first term as president. Less than a day later, far-right internet personality Jack Posobiec, is that how you say it?
I believe it's Pasabic.
Pasabic. I knew you would know. Personality Jack Pasabic made suggestions of a conspiracy when he posted on Telegram. We now know the judge who signed off on the Mar-a-Lago raid was Jeffrey Epstein's lawyer. Don't question it. This claim was misleading, however, because while federal magistrate Judge Bruce Reinhart had indeed represented employees of Epstein, local press reported that any magistrate judge would have signed off on the raid, and Reinhart was just the one who was available. Close Trump aide and FBI Director Kash Patel had also cast doubts on the conclusion that Epstein died by suicide before Trump appointed him to lead FBI. FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino has also expressed similar doubts in the past. In 2023, Patel, addressing the then leaders of the FBI, said on a YouTube show, "Put on your big boy pants and let us know who the pedophiles are."
Didn't Don Bongino also have a whole podcast that was like Epstein didn't kill himself?
He might have. Let's look. Don Bongino, Epstein podcast. I don't know that he called it that. I mean, he has the Dan Bongino show, so maybe he just like talked about it a lot on that. I don't know that it was called that. Maybe an episode was called that. But then there's also something that's like Bongino's Epstein flip-flop that comes up.
Each weekday, he tackles the hottest political issues, including debunking both liberal and conservative and Republican establishment rhetoric. So likely it was involved in that.
Okay. In May this year, Patel and Bongino both changed their positions to the U.S. government's conclusion that Epstein died by suicide. Why? Because they were threatened. Why has Attorney General Pam Bondi come under pressure now? Bondi has spoken about the Epstein files in the past and is seen as having stirred up interest and expectations of revelations among conspiracy theorists. During an interview with Fox News in February, Bondi was asked, the DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen? She responded, it's sitting on my desk right now to review. Also in February, political commentators and far-right influencers were invited to the White House and presented with documents titled The Epstein Files Phase 1. Bondi then released these documents, which did not contain anything revelatory about the Epstein case. However, she also said that she had delivered a truckload of evidence about the Epstein case to the FBI. Monday's memo, which stated that the list Bondi has been promising to release did not exist, was the final nail in the coffin of disappointment for critics within MAGA. On Tuesday, Bondi denied that she had been talking about a client list. Instead, the list she was referring to was the Epstein case file. That's what I meant by that, she said. On Tuesday, Bondi...
Who hasn't made that mistake?
On Tuesday, Bondi also said that the thousands of videos regarding the Epstein case reviewed by U.S. intelligence could not, in fact, be released to the public since they contain child sexual abuse.
Protect the children at all costs.
Child porn is what they were, never going to be released, never going to see the light of day, she said. What are the conspiracy theorists saying now? Following the government memo on Monday, far-right personalities expressed further disappointment. The missing minute in the Epstein video. Conservatives, including social media personality Robbie Starbuck, raised... That's a hilarious name. Raised questions about the video posted by the DOJ on Monday in online posts. He says there are some extremely bizarre things about the video of Epstein's cell that Pam Bondi's DOJ released as proof no one killed him. First, a full minute appears to be missing from the video, and secondly, it does not appear to be the same cell as the photo released on January 5th, 2020. Far-right influencer Jack Pasabic posted on X, "We were all told more was coming, that answers were out there and would be provided. Incredible how utterly mismanaged this Epstein mess has been, and it didn't have to be." Alex Jones is another conspiracy theorist who has spent 3 years in federal bankruptcy court. Okay, so because of Sandy Hook, they're just explaining to their readers who Alex Jones is, but we all know here. Now he is engaging with more conspiracy theories. He wrote on X on Tuesday, next, the DOJ will say, actually, Jeffrey Epstein was never even existed, deeming the memo's findings over the top sickening. Trump ally and another conspiracy theorist, Laura Loomer, also wrote on X, Pam Blondie, she just said Pam Blondie, is covering up child sex crimes that took place under her watch when she was Attorney General of Florida, adding that Bondi needs to be fired. Epstein's links to Trump and Steve Bannon. Last month, billionaire Elon Musk, a former Trump ally, claimed in a now deleted post that Trump was named in Epstein files, which remain sealed. He later expressed regret for the social media jabs he made towards Trump. But this week, he made a further series of posts alleging that the government is withholding material about Epstein. How can people be expected to have faith in Trump if he won't release the Epstein files? Musk posted on Tuesday. In a reply to another post, Musk also alleged that Bannon is in the Epstein files, referring to former White House advisor and Trump aide Steve Bannon. Musk did not provide evidence for this, and Bannon's name is not in the files that were released in January 2024. Musk and Bannon have clashed in the past year, in the past over the H-1B visa program that brings foreign workers to the U.S. What was Trump's relationship with Epstein? Trump's name does appear in the Epstein files released in January 2024, but he is not accused of anything. Here is the context. Joanna Schoberg, one of the many women who have accused Epstein of sexual abuse, mentioned a 2001 incident where she boarded a plane with Epstein and a few others in Palm Beach, Florida. Schoberg said that Virginia Giuffre, another woman who sued Epstein for abusing her at his homes in Florida, New York, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and New Mexico, was also present on the plane. Giuffre later accused Epstein and Prince Andrew of the UK of sexual abuse, but died by suicide earlier this year, and that one also freaks me out. The plane was unable to land in New York due to a storm and was forced to land in Atlantic City and visited one of Trump's casinos. Schoberg said that Giuffre was underage at the time of this incident and that Schoberg was asked if she was allowed into the casino. "I did not know anything about how old you had to be to gamble legally. I just knew she could not get in because of an ID issue, so she and I did not gamble," Schoberg answered. So that's where we are on that. Very messy. Also, that article reminded me that Elon Musk he's making his own political party, the American Party, I think it's called. Yeah, that was yet another thing that happened this week. NPR has a thing saying Elon Musk wants to launch a competitive third party. It likely wouldn't be easy. Again, I think the best shot that America has at a third party now is just splitting the Democratic Party into the Democratic Party and the Socialist Party. But I don't know. Elon Musk obviously has other plans. This week began floating his idea for the American Party after his falling out with Donald Trump. It's unclear if Musk would actually, try to turn this into reality, but I think, basically he's just talking about it on X as of now. His proposed party is aimed at providing a political home to centrist voters, or as he put it, the 80% in the middle. Trump himself has ridiculed the idea, writing that the system seems not designed for third parties. The one thing third parties are good for is the creation of complete and total disruption and chaos. And for Trump to accuse someone else of disruption and chaos is really quite hilarious. All right, let's move to the end of the show to the Camp Mystic story, which is the main story. I don't know if it's the main story to you, but this was deeply disturbing to me. So this first article about it is from CNN, and I'm not going right and left on this. I'm actually going like mainstream and Substack on this. That's how I'm breaking this up. So this is from CNN. State inspection 2 days before deadly floods found Camp Mystic had emergency plan in place. 2 days before the deadly Central Texas floods killed at least 27 people at Camp Mystic. A state inspector visited the youth camp and certified that it had an emergency plan in place and that its cabins and other buildings were safe, records obtained by CNN show, because that was a big talking point, like that they didn't have a plan, blah, blah, blah. The inspector with the Texas Department of State Health Services confirmed on July 2nd that the Christian camp on the banks of the Guadalupe River had a state-mandated plan for emergency shelter and for evacuation in case of disaster. In the wake of the devastation at the nearly 100-year-old summer camp, the state inspection report raises new questions about whether that emergency plan was adequate and how closely it was followed. The state health department does not maintain copies of youth camp emergency plans, but they are reviewed during each annual inspection, said Laura Anton, a spokesperson for the agency. Plans for disasters would include flooding, she noted. Leaders at Camp Mystic did not respond to phone calls and an email from CNN about the disaster plan. Our hearts are broken alongside our families that are enduring this unimaginable tragedy, a statement on the camp website read. We have been in communication with local and state authorities who are tirelessly deploying extensive resources to search for our missing girls. You can see the layout on this article, if you're interested in what happened. Through a public records request, CNN obtained the most recent 4 years of annual inspections, which were first reported by KSAT. The inspections evaluated Camp Mystic on dozens of different safety and compliance rules on topics from water supply to bunk bed guardrails. Those also included state regulations requiring youth camps to formulate a written emergency plan in case of a disaster, serious accident, epidemic, or fatality, and post it at a camp's office and in each permanent and semi-permanent occupied building. Staff and volunteers must be made aware of the plan during trainings, and campers should be instructed about what to do in the event of a disaster or the need to evacuate. The state inspector who visited Camp Mystic last week reported that it was complying with those requirements, confirming that a written emergency plan had been posted at the camp and staff and volunteers were made aware of it. The inspector also found that none of the camp's buildings or structures presented a safety hazard. All buildings complied with applicable building and safety codes, and all permanent structures were in good repair. The camp passed the inspection with no deficiency violation, according to the records. The previous annual inspections over the last 4 years also found that Camp Mystic was following the rules on emergency planning. The camp had been hit with a few violations in recent years related to food preparation and insufficient documentation of experience or training for riflery and equine instructors, the records show. There were 386 campers and 64 staff members staying at the camp's Guadalupe River section where the worst of the flooding happened, as well as 171 campers and 44 staff at the nearby Cypress Lake section of the camp, according to the July 2nd inspection. When the floodwaters hit the camp, in the early hours of July 4th, counselors and staff helped young campers climb a hill to evacuate to higher ground, according to witness accounts. But waters rose so quickly that some campers and counselors, especially those in cabins on lower grounds closest to the river, weren't able to make it out in time. Caroline Cutrona, a Camp Mystic counselor, told CNN that a power outage around 4 a.m. that morning meant that the camp's loudspeaker public address system wasn't working, and that she never received cell phone alerts about the flash flooding because counselors and campers weren't allowed to keep their phones with them. It's unclear whether the camp's emergency plan accounted for the communication breakdowns. Some of the cabins campers were staying in are located in the Guadalupe River's regulatory floodways, the areas that flood first and are most dangerous, according to federal flood maps. Other cabins are located in an area that the federal government has determined has a 1% chance of flooding each year. But the Texas regulations for youth camps don't say anything about flood zones, and the state records don't show the annual inspections of Camp Mystic taking that into account. So that's just kind of like more informational. And then another article that I found really interesting that wasn't just kind of going over the information that we kind of all know. This is from ABC, and it said the deadly floods at Camp Mystic, how the tragedy compares to a similar event in 1987. The Guadalupe River flood killed 10 teenagers in July 1987. Camp Mystic, the Christian girls' summer camp that was hit with the devastating floods on July 4th, was part of an eerily similar tragedy that occurred almost 38 years ago to the day, officials said. That tragedy on July 17th, 1987, known as the Guadalupe River flood, began when 5 to 10 inches of rain fell in the upper headwaters of the Guadalupe River basin, which resulted in a massive flood that traveled down the river through Ingram, Hunt, near Camp Mystic, Caryville, and Comfort, Texas, according to reports from the National Weather Service and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And you can actually see the news footage in this article from July 1987 with the news reporter chronicling this. At approximately 2:45 a.m., a flood warning was issued for the Guadalupe River from Caryville upstream, with 4 to 6 inches of rain pummeling down in only 3 to 4 hours, causing a 15-foot rise in the river near the camp. There were also reports of people being trapped in rising waters at this time. Then at 4:30 a.m., an alert was released saying officials at camps along the river, including Camp Mystic, should have everyone well away from the floodplain and to high grounds already, according to the reports from officials. 5 minutes later, Camp Mystic officials said they had pulled camps in the area and all campers are accounted for. While no one at Camp Mystic died from the 1987 flood, unlike the dozens that died in the tragedy over the weekend, 10 teenagers were killed when a bus and van washed away near Comfort, Texas. The teenagers were attending a church camp at the Pot O' Gold Ranch, which was scheduled to end the same day that the flood washed away the group, officials said. Law enforcement officials had notified the camp at 2 a.m. and at 6 a.m. of the flood wave coming down the Guadalupe River, and the decision was then made to evacuate the children early to avoid being trapped at the camp. When the caravan of buses and a van left the camp, one of the buses and the van encountered a flooded low water crossing on the river and decided to try an alternate route. The lead buses successfully made the sharp turn to head a different direction, but rapidly rising water from the river, which had reached 29 feet tall that morning, caused the last bus to stall and the van behind it to become stranded. An attempt was made to evacuate the children off the bus and the van, but as they were wading back to dry ground, a wall of water around half a mile wide rushed upon the campers. 43 people, 39 teenagers, and 4 adults were swept into the waters, with 10 teenagers drowning. The remaining 33 children and adults were rescued. It is unclear if any changes were implemented in the wake of the 1987 tragedy. This weekend's tragedy has already raised questions about whether there were adequate safety measures in the region in the event of a major flooding event. And so those are the main news articles that I felt were really interesting about this. And then I have a friend who sent me this Substack article, and she was very angry about the right. And this is someone who's like very smart and knowledgeable about the news. And so I
Ooh, I got a counterpiece to this.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, Mike has a counterpiece to it, but. So I just wanted to share this with you because, this always happens. Everything and all death and destruction these days, it always becomes a political argument. And I don't know. I just I don't disagree. Sometimes I was just too upset about all the death to really even talk about politics with this. But obviously we do need to talk about it. So this is from Jilly Bean's Substack. You let your kids drown so you could own the libs. Hope the bubbles sound like applause. You brainwashed fucking monsters. This is probably a little bit more of a liberal piece than I would normally read. But again, my friend sent it to me and I respect this friend and her opinions. And so I wanted to share it with you. And I also am just genuinely interested in what other people are reading and what resonates with other people. That's what this show is about. So here we go. The clouds didn't burst over Texas because of nature. They burst because ideology rotted every dam, silenced every warning, and buried reason beneath a red, white, and blue Bible. This wasn't a natural disaster. It was conservative governance, a grand experiment in rugged ignorance and libertarian cosplay, murdering 51 people with boots on their throats and prayers on their lips. And now they want sympathy. They want dignity. They want the world to see their grief without asking who set the stage, who emptied the coffers, who fired the scientist, and who laughed while choking the life out of every public agency that could have shouted, "Move," in time to save those children. No, we're not playing pretend anymore. You do not get to shrug this off as God's will when you defunded the emergency sirens. You do not get to sob in press conferences while still voting to cut climate adaptation budgets. You do not get to wrap your grief in a flag while your ideology remains a bloody rag floating down the Guadalupe River. You did this. You conservative sons of bitches did this. Texas is a land of contradictions, where billion-dollar oil empires sit atop schools too broke to afford flood insurance, where liberty means the liberty to drown in a campground because some governor decided automated flood warnings were a socialist plot, where MAGA cultists go on record calling meteorologists murderers, claiming the storm was fake because it doesn't fit their Book of Revelations weather schedule. Kaczynski, in parentheses. And here's the twisted beauty of it all. It worked exactly the way it was designed to. When Donald Trump gutted the National Weather Service, conservatives cheered. Bureaucracy slain, budgets shaved, victory. When Texas slashed their public communications programs, conservatives posted memes about bootstraps and personal responsibility. And when floods became more frequent, more violent, more apocalyptic, conservatives passed thoughts instead of legislation. Breland. So when a supercell parked itself over Kerr County like a heavenly middle finger, what was left to protect the people? Local officials armed with half a warning and a prayer, camps full of children nestled beside rising rivers with no alerts, no sirens, just the slow terror of water that does not care about your politics. And in that silence, 51 lives slipped away, drowned not by the weather, but by the ego of men too proud to fund preparedness. This wasn't failure, it was policy. Let's talk about that policy. The entire conservative project since Reagan, now turbocharged by Trump, has been to deconstruct the state, gut the experts, and sell the carcass to the highest bidder. They call it small government. They call it liberty. But what it really means is that when you need someone to warn you, to save you, to protect you, they're gone. Or worse, replaced by a dipshit sheriff with a Bible and a budget shortfall. Associated Press. The warning systems failed because the warnings were never fully funded. The alerts failed because messaging coordination had been stripped bare. The people failed because they'd been taught that trusting science is liberal weakness. It was all preventable. Not the rain. The rain was always going to fall. But the death came from refusal. Refusal to accept climate science. Refusal to build modern infrastructure. Refusal to invest in public systems because somewhere some jackass thought FEMA was communism. And now this is interesting because especially now knowing what we know about the 1987 incident, it doesn't really seem that it's like, I mean, climate change, I suppose, made it worse, but like we knew, like we already had the information. So that is, to me, a very shocking article that we just read. And now those same jackasses are shocked that the consequences showed up wet and angry. Here's the part where they whimper, nobody could have predicted this. The government did its job. There's nothing we could have done. Wrong. The meteorologists did predict it. The forecasts were clear. The watches and warnings were issued days in advance. Flood. But the state had dismantled the connective tissue between science and the people, on purpose, on budget, with votes. And even when the forecast screamed flash flood emergency, the ground game was impotent. Camps weren't evacuated. Residents weren't warned. Systems weren't triggered. People died waiting for a government that had already been defunded into a PowerPoint presentation. Iannelli. This is the naked truth. They chose this, not the storm, the slaughter, not the rain, the ritual sacrifice of their own people to the gods of deregulation and ignorance, because that is what conservatism has become, a suicide cult with tax cuts. If I sound angry, it is because I am. I'm incandescent with it. You don't get to weep over coffins you helped fill. You don't get to act shocked when the government you spent your career trying to kill doesn't save your grandkids from drowning. Texas has turned itself into a libertarian experiment, and the results are lethal. They've ruined the comedy scene, too. In that area. Climate change is not a debate. It is not a hoax. It is not a liberal agenda. It is physics. It is here. It is rising. And if your policy platform is let's ignore the water and pray it doesn't notice us, then you deserve every syllable of this shame. What is truly monstrous is how predictable this was. This wasn't some once-in-a-century freak event. This was the logical outcome of cutting corners and calling it patriotism, of mocking scientists and calling it faith, of praying for rain and then drowning because you refused to fund the lifeboats. So now what? Will Texas learn? Will red states wake up? Will we see a shift? No. They'll double down. They'll demand more freedom, more deregulation, more incompetence dressed in biblical cosplay. They'll spin the victims as martyrs. They'll say it was God's will. But it wasn't God. It was Greg Abbott's budget. It was Donald Trump's war on federal science. It was every Facebook uncle who said climate change is fake and every conservative donor who said FEMA can't have another dime. It was you. It was policy. It was deliberate. And until that ideology is torn out root and stem, until we stop pretending that small government is a noble virtue and start calling it what it is, a smokescreen for death by neglect, then the rivers will keep rising and the body count will keep climbing. You didn't get flooded because God was angry. You got flooded because your elected leaders were proud to be stupid and you voted for it. And then she cites, all the places that the names that I cited are larger things that she cited, works cited MLA style with annotations if you're interested. But again, this is from Jilly Bean's Substack, jillybeanmonet.substack.com. I'm not a big Substack girly, but I thought this was an interesting piece. And I liked the writing. The writing was pretty melodic. It was kind of like a beat poetry a little bit. Michael, you had a rebuttal?
Yeah, it's something just something about that kind of struck me. If there was flood warnings for days before it actually happened, why were they doing cloud seeding in Texas?
Right. Oh, that's right. I was thinking of the cloud seeding. You did bring that to my attention earlier.
Yeah, I don't, everything when I Googled it is like crazy conspiracy theories over, cloud seeding and how that could have been a thing. But it's like, okay, well, if we can make clouds produce more rain, why are we doing it in a place where there's already a flood warning, as that article just said, days before? Like, they're claiming online that cloud seeding couldn't possibly have kept rain going for a couple more days. It's a short-term thing, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're telling me Texas had flood warnings 2 to 3 days before it happened, why in God's name were they cloud seeding?
Well, okay, so here, I looked it up real quick, and it says, this is from the Associated Press, fact focus, no weather modification did not cause the deadly flash floods in Texas. And I'm not saying that's what you're claiming, but So here, these are the officials say there's no evidence that the floods are the result of cloud seeding, and experts agree that cloud seeding would not result in precipitation of this magnitude. Claim a July 2nd cloud seeding operation by Rainmaker Technology Corporation caused flash floods in the Texas Hill Country over the 4th of July holiday weekend. The facts: this is false. It is not possible that cloud seeding generated the floods, according to experts, as the process can only produce limited precipitation using clouds that already exist. Forecasts predicted rain for that weekend prior to July 2nd in an area that was already prone to flooding. The claim that cloud seeding played a role in this tragic event is complete nonsense. But then what is this? Okay, so nonetheless, social media users question whether Rainmaker's operations could be connected to the disaster in Texas. Well, this is weird. A company called Rainmaker conducted a cloud seeding mission on July 2nd over Texas Hill Country, reads one X post. 2 days later, the worst flood in their history occurred in the same exact area that the Rainmaker flights were. The entire goal of Rainmaker is to increase the precipitation of existing clouds. Why do we let these corporations fuck with the weather? Many posts also noted Rainmaker's connection to Silicon Valley billionaire Peter Thiel, who co-founded the data mining outfit Palantir Technologies, a secretive company that has long relied on spies, police, and the military as its customers. The Thiel Foundation awarded Rainmaker founder and CEO Augustus Dorico $100,000 in 2024 as part of its fellowship program. Cloud seeding utilizes an artificial material, typically silver iodide, to induce precipitation or clear fog. The practice is an imprecise undertaking with mixed results. Dessler explained that cloud seeding can work in certain limited situations and produce very modest increases in precipitation, but often delivers nothing. Regardless, the process cannot create storms out of thin air. Ken Leppert, an associate professor of atmospheric science at the University of Louisiana Monroe, said it had absolutely nothing to do with the flash floods. He explains that further, but so you were just saying, like, if they knew it was coming, why were they doing it at all? It seems like it just doesn't have that big of an impact. But yet you are right. That does still seem like if meteorologists knew, why would we be doing anything that would increase it? Let's see one more. There's like a mlive.com, cloud seeding is being blamed for flash flooding. This is kind of the same thing, but is that really true? So your thing is like that. Your thing is more like that that cloud seeding wouldn't have been done had we known the information about the environment, not that it caused it, Mike. Like, what's your?
Well, I mean, look. They're saying that it's simply not possible. Like, I read one thing that said the most they've ever produced from cloud seeding is like 10 million things of water, and this thing pumped out 4 trillion. So it's like, it's not even a drop in the bucket. But look, I mean, there's a sliding scale where those numbers could get shifted over the years as they explain this, and it's like, it just seems suspect. If you knew, why would you do it? If you knew that much rain was already coming, why was this the place you chose? In a place that's already dealing with in a high-risk flood zone, when there's a warning about floods going out that apparently isn't being received by the people in Texas. explain why you'd add water if not for nefarious purposes.
Yeah, but so what but like why so what would like what political gain would they get from killing these people?
I mean, articles like we just read on Substack about how this whole thing is Trump's fault. If you were to target an area that is, high, there's a high likelihood of flood here. There's already rain projected to come down this weekend. And this is the area where Trump's shut off emergency services. I know how we could make Trump look like a bad guy.
Well, it says cloud seeding operations are widespread in Texas and cover about 1/6 of the state, spanning 31 million acres across its northwestern, western, and southern regions as of 2022. According to the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation, Dorico said that the technology was completely unrelated to the flash floods in Texas, which he said were prompted by parts of a tropical storm blowing into the state. Over the past week, Dorico has appeared on several news broadcasts and podcasts to discuss the technology and explain why it isn't linked to the floods. That's the Rainmaker CEO. Let's see. So, okay, this is like ABC. This is ABC 13, Travis Herzog's Facebook. So he's like a meteorologist. Hi, it's me again. Let's talk about cloud seeding. We're all hurting over here in Texas after these floods. Why am I bringing up cloud seeding? Because I've seen the same viral videos and posts you have seen claiming that cloud seeding is responsible for the floods in the Texas Hill Country. And it's inserting confusion and questions into a grieving community that really needs to be focused on other things at this time. Scientific voices in the meteorology community are needed right now to help put these claims to rest. So I will again lend my voice to help answer some of your questions and hopefully clear up some confusion. Cloud seeding is a type of weather modification that involves injecting a few grams of a chemical, usually silver iodide, into an existing cloud to seed the formation of larger water droplets or ice crystals that will then cause the cloud to precipitate slightly more than it would have if left alone. We've been doing it in America since the 1940s, and the physics behind it is pretty simple. Clouds are composed of tiny water droplets or ice crystals called hydrometeors, and that, my friends, is where the word meteorology comes from, that need even smaller microscopic particles called cloud condensation nuclei to form. These are things like specks of dust, salt, and smoke. When they are present in a moist air mass, that moisture can condense around those particles to create water droplets. Most clouds don't rain or snow because the water droplets or ice crystals remain too small for gravity to pull them down to the earth. The silver iodide particles injected into clouds are significantly larger cloud condensation nuclei that happen to be really good at creating larger droplets or ice crystals that can fall to the ground. What is the purpose of cloud seeding operations? Generally, these are designed to help enhance rainfall or snowpack in arid regions of the country that do not have dependable rainfall and are subject to droughts. Is cloud seeding regulated? Yes, there are both federal regulations and state regulations. It is not done in secret. You can read about federal regulations here, and he links to it. And you can read about Texas regulations here. It's tdlr.texas.gov/weather, where cloud seeding operations conducted on the storms that produced the Texas floods. No. In fact, Texas regulations prohibit cloud seeding on storms that could produce severe weather, tornadoes, or flash floods. One of the companies singled out on social media for cloud seeding conducted its last operation on Wednesday, July 2nd. Could the cloud seeding conducted 2 days before the floods have created or impacted the storms on July 4th? No, only an existing cloud can be seeded, and once that cloud has been seeded, it rains itself out. Furthermore, the cloud seeding took place southeast of San Antonio, roughly 150 miles away from Kerr County. Does cloud seeding create stronger superstorms or lead to less rainfall elsewhere? The science and observations say no. According to the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation website, there is no evidence that the seeding contributes to less rainfall anywhere else. What is more, there is no evidence that seeding causes clouds to grow substantially taller and produce unwanted effects such as damaging winds, hail, and flash floods. To the contrary, the available evidence from over 8 years of research in West Texas suggests cloud seeding, when done timely and accurately, contributes to more gentle, widespread, and longer-lasting rains. And he said at the end of the day, this flood was caused by the remnants of 2 tropical weather systems that cannot be created nor controlled by mankind, despite claims to the contrary. I mean, look at this rainfall map. That's a year's worth of rain in some communities that fell in 5 days over a geographic area bigger than many states in our country. Does it make sense to you that dropping a few grams of silver iodide into a cloud 150 miles away from the hardest hit communities 2 days before the flood even occurred could have caused that? It's been said before that extraordinary claims you encounter can be true, but you should demand extraordinary evidence to back it up. If you made it this far, congratulations. I hope it helped. I just like this because, I basically, out of everything, will trust a nerd's perspective the most, honestly. And I'm sorry, I don't think ABC 13's Travis Herzog, a meteorologist that I've never heard of, really has a horse in this race besides his absolute love for the weather, which I think was depicted nicely here. So that, I think, explained it quite nicely. But if anyone has any more information, feel free to send it over to withoutacountrypodcast@gmail.com. I think we did a nice comprehensive show for you today. Again, if you're interested in joining our Patreon, head over to patreon.com/withoutacountry. You can get multiple exclusive video news stories, one a week, in fact, for as little as $6 a month. By being a cutie, you can donate $11 a month to be a capitalist pig and just, know that you're better than everybody else. And right now, of course, our dictator is Christopher Fan Guy. Thank you so much for joining us. And continue to use critical thinking. And when you read something, take those 5 extra minutes to make sure that the information is factual and that you have the whole story, especially, not only before believing it for yourself, but especially before passing on that information to somebody else, including just people who follow you on the internet. I think that is all of our responsibilities as people in the society. And we all so often ask, what can I do in times where there is so much turmoil and so much distrust. And I think that spreading factual, facts instead of misinformation is a really big contribution that you can make that really shouldn't take too much of your time, especially with the resources and technology that we have in 2025. So thank you so much for being here. Again, if you want to send me anything, municipal news or thoughts or commentary or whatever, it's withoutacountrypodcast@gmail.com. I read all the emails myself. And of course, make sure to follow me on Instagram at Philanthropy Gal. Follow the show at Without a Country. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube no matter how you take this in. And Mike, do you have anything that you want to promote? I know you have some battles coming up.
Yeah. July 31st at Melrose Ballroom in Long Island City. We're doing another event for the Armored League. I'm going to make my debut on a pretty big streaming service. So I'm pretty excited about that. On commentary, it's going to be a fun night of sword and steel fights. And July 17th, Anxiety Attacks back in New York Comedy Club with another incredible lineup. Tickets at newyorkcomedyclub.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here. Remember, the truth is in there, and we will keep finding it together. Have a great week. Bye.